That's cool.
Extreme close up. It's like Wayne's World. I got my things that have tried to eat Luke and failed shirt that I got from Beth before we do the intros. Yes, technically the Ewoks would have eaten Luke had he not had the Force. And 3PO not been able to. Whoop. Oh, bye, Stella. Sorry. Okay, I think it's working now. We're having OBS issues. Sorry about that. And, oh, look, it's 13 minutes and Monday. Ah, hello, welcome, and salutations to the Supreme Council of the Master Geeks Lodge. My name is Hornswoggle the Great. Titles are many, accomplishments few. I don't want to say that. Actually, I have a lot of accomplishments. But I'm here to entertain you. Hey, that rhymed. It's terrible rap night, folks. And with me, I have
Car guy, automotive detective, protector of all pedestrians, and caretaker of everything geek.
Blacksmith. I'm a cigar and I'm tired. I'm old.
Whoa, half of that we didn't even hear because all of a sudden you're. That's not fair. His audio was working fine for the last 15 minutes, and now he starts to talk while we're broadcasting, and it was like. And then you said you were old.
We'll try it again.
Please.
I'm Rob the Blacksmith. I'm old, I'm tired, and I have a cigar.
Guy, I found three quick pictures of us in cat form, and I put it on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to look at it on both. You're the Batman cat.
The Batman cat. There we go. There we go. Oh my God, everything going in geek culture because I've gotten so much information that's come up because I got friends that actually went to Star Wars Celebration in Japan, and they were sending me pictures back of when they went to see Star Wars Celebration. People talking about the new again. If anybody's seen the new Fantastic Four trailer, and all the guest appearances that's coming to Comic-Con later in a few months, I think in June. So I've been my mailbox has been inundated with different stuff. Hey, what's you going to do this? Hey, check this out. Hey, look at this. What do you think of this? Different questions from my geek friends.
Speaking of geek culture, I encountered something that is slowly happening around the world. Let me ask the two of you, not in the movies, but in the comic books, who is the father of the Scarlet Witch? Because in the movies, they have him as brother and sister, which, no. I just gave you.
But in comics?
Yep. I just gave you the answer.
Yeah. It depends on the run of comics.
Good save.
Because some of it, depending on it, because a lot of things, how can I say, in comics, in modern comics, they retroactively change things or alter things. Because for a while there, when we were talking about the House of M, that was Magneto. When he was doing the House of M, the Scarlet Witch's daughter to Magneto, and so is Quicksilver's son to Magneto.
But that's an alternate reality. In the original series, it's the other way around, where in one of the Avenger episodes, Quicksilver is father to the Scarlet Witch. And I got into a big discussion with one of the security guards at work, and he's like, no, the Magneto. And I'm like, no, dude, no. First off, Magneto is an Earthling mutant, and second off, Quicksilver is an Inhuman that was born on the moon. They're not even,
they're not the same.
They're not the same. And Quicksilver is Scarlet Witch's father. So we went and looked it up, and even the internet says, no, they're both Magneto, and it's just, what, so the 1960s doesn't exist anymore? Is that?
Well, that's the interesting thing that you brought up, because there's a subculture or underneath culture, something that's happening, and there's proof. Think of it, they're doing like a Mandela effect, because Wikipedia can be changed, and we've seen it changed in live time, and people don't remember how it is, because what you're talking about, Bill, is absolutely right. But we seen Wikipedia.
Vindication! Sorry, Rob, you're quiet on this, but thank you, guy. That's all I wanted.
I'll explain. I'll explain this. I'll explain this. And we seen it lifetime and happen. Jacana Mundi, okay, in Star Wars lore.
Okay.
He was in the first trilogy. He's the guy with the thing on the head. He's a Jedi. He was killed by Order 66.
Oh, he's also the first action figure and he has the.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, because I remember buying him, going, I got it. I have no idea who this motherfucker is.
He's the first action figure. He's very known in the Star Wars trilogies. Very known on it. Okay. When they put him in the Acolyte happened way before A New Hope.
Okay.
And they had Mundi in it, and he wasn't even supposed to be born. The big hoopla that happened was Wikipedia changed it to the new lore because whoever did the Acolyte didn't know what they were talking about, put a character that came up through the prequels to the trilogy and it was killed at Order 66 was never there. He would have been a young guy. He would have never been that old. So they had to retroactively fix that mistake. And Star Wars Theory caught them in the act because he took a before and after picture, how they edited when they edited it, and they showed the difference before and after when it came out. And he says, wait a minute, they're changing it. And he even showed one of the books. It was like a graphic novel. It showed the history of Star Wars and showed when he was born, when he was created, how he became a Jedi. And it was years after the effects of when the Acolyte started. So he said they were changing it. Also, too, the same thing happened to Spider-Man.
Yeah. Sci-fi fascism in live time, kids.
In live time. Well, what happened is, and this happened in 2000, 2003, where the One More Day storyline came up, where Mary Jane, where Spider-Man asks for one more day, and he makes a deal with Mephisto to make everything right. They kind of stole this for the last Spider-Man movie. And what happens, Mephisto gave him his wish, but broke Mary Jane and Peter Parker up. She don't remember to marry, not a kid or nothing on it. So she goes on to marry some guy. They have kids together, and that's all the new Spider-Mans are like that. Well, the current run of Spider-Man, I think Ultimate or Spectacular Spider-Man, takes place on a different universe where they're still married. That One More Day comic didn't happen. And it's outselling the original one because of that. And everybody's saying, well, they're not married and stuff on it. So they're trying to change the Wikipedia on it because of it. So it's shenanigans. And now, same thing with that. To go into the next thing, the same thing with that is they're doing it with the Fantastic Four film.
Which one?
And what I mean, the new one. That's why I said, have you guys seen the trailer? Because they have a female Silver Surfer. Okay. And the female Silver Surfer that they have, and people are complaining about the big hoopla, is one that wasn't in the stories. It wasn't in the stories. It only happened in a what if.
Yeah, where's Frankie?
A what?
If you're going to take away the Silver Surfer, the next immediate replacement would be Frankie. Would be the new Nova.
The new Nova.
If you want to, if you want to do a female, really powerful herald of Galactus, get Frankie. Do Nova. She's like the Human Torch, but a woman.
Mm-hmm. And she had been in comics for years. And that's the big hoopla of it.
She's been the girlfriend of the Silver Surfer since the 80s. Since the 80s. They've been dating for 40 years. In space.
So that's the biggest thing that happened. That you see a lot of people come up. When the trailer came up, people were like, well, of course, they had a female Silver Surfer for a little time. That was a Silver Surfer.
Later, yeah.
Way later. It's too modern, too new. But they totally took Frankie out of the picture. And I agree with you, Bill. They could have used Frankie. They could have had Nova if they wanted, because there's established a female, but she's not a Silver Surfer. She's Nova. She's her own thing.
Well,
everyone.
No, you're right, because Galactus has had multiple heralds. Not all of them have a surfboard and are silver. They all look different, but they all do the same function. So the problem is that your, mob mind of the non, I don't,
the non-normies, as I call them, the people that never read comics but only go with the movies.
I hate to.
They're limited.
Myself, guy, I run around all day going, God, we worked so hard in the 90s to get rid of labels, only to have our kids and grandkids bring them back. So the last thing I want to do is label groups of people, but let's just say the vast majority that didn't take the time in their youth or were, dude, there's like a lot of our friends, they're outside, they're doing sports and building forts and exploring creeks and cricks. There's a difference, I know. And they didn't have time for comic books. It's not that they didn't like them or wouldn't enjoy them. It's just that people with athletic bodies can't sit still for too long. They can sit still, it's possible, but they have to be exhausted to do it. So, that being said, it's the same argument of DC and Marvel equal across the board. You're trying to cram 60 years, 70 years worth of story into 2 hours. What are you doing? What are you doing? So you wanted to talk not just about conspiracy theories and the changing of the stuff within comics, and I wanted to talk about that too, so I kind of pushed it forward, but also with the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four is another... In the beginning, Stan Lee was trying to put new spins on existing material. And Eisner, there's a reason that when you do awesome in the comic book community, it's called an Eisner Award, because Eisner was doing 2 different genres. He's the first one that pretty much invented a graphic novel, and on the other end, he was doing The Spirit. The Spirit is his first dark, back from the dead vigilante that so many others, not just Batman, not just the Crow, not just Punisher, there's many, many others. There's always the Dark Avenger because it's part of being male. You identify with that.
Yeah, going to what you're saying is I read the sentiments on everybody was what they're saying about it, and they're so put off about this that if they would have just left the Silver Surfer alone, it would have been fine. People would have been more hyped up about it. But because they're calling her the Silver Surfette, it's a joke now. So what's happening is not only did it take the air out of the situation, the balloon.
I wish I was an artist so I could.
Correct.
Sorry.
Think about it. There's pictures and memes about it. That now it makes it a joke. Now they're comparing it to a girl boss movie because the last trailer is focusing on Sue, and Reed Richards kind of looks like he's unsure of himself.
Okay, that's
so everybody.
why.
That's and they're like, oh my God, is this another? It's going to be another girl boss movie.
Yeah. Everybody's screaming about that. It's like, what are you talking about? Sue was like super supportive of Reed. She doesn't like.
Yeah.
It's going to be so awesome to watch the modern audience deal with the 1960s relationship where she has to shut her mouth and help him out.
Well, the biggest problem what happened was they put that out. Then there was a new article in Vanity Fair where she said, we're taking Sue and making it for the modern audiences.
Oh, that's terrible.
And everybody was saying it, and rightfully so. It says, Sue, you're putting the movie back in the 60s, alternate universe, and it's all 60 era stuff. But none of its ideology, how's that going to work? Because back in the 60s, it was family oriented. There was a patriarch, there was a matriarch, the family was there, it was a family unit. So they all took their steps, but now it's with a modern edge to it, so it doesn't gel with it. So everybody's like pointing out, what's the funny thing is pointing out is like, if they would have took the old Fantastic Four with Jessica Alba, with Chris Evans and all that, and just put him into this. Shitless. And he doesn't even have to be in it. All he has to do is voice it. They could have digitally did it. It would have gave it more gravitas because they're older. This is an older Fantastic Four. They've been on this planet for years. So it would have worked for it and would have gave them the gravitas because you know what they've been through and understood. Where these new Fantastic Four, you don't know who they are because Johnny Storm is not a womanizer. He's not a hothead. So when I remember the Fantastic Four, there were analogies. Sue Storm was the Invisible Woman because she didn't think anybody saw her. Johnny Storm had the angst of youth. He was a hothead. Ben was the rock of the Fantastic Four. He was the realist. He was the support. He was always there to dig him out. And
Reed
Richards,
Mr. Fantastic, the malleable scientist that's going to go with the most logical solution to the situation.
But he becomes Mr. Fantastic because he's
very astute guy. Well done. I salute your take on that.
Well, he's always stretched out too far, and that's why he has his stretching powers. He's always stretching, trying to cover it. So they're allegories of them and the family, but that's what made it work.
Yes.
Choose the heart, where Ben's the strength.
Yes, I have to. I have. Okay, if I can interrupt you real quick because
go ahead.
I really wanted to hate the Jessica Alba and because the cast is really good, but they kind of it was surprisingly good. Now I didn't see the next reboot after that one, but even though they changed, a few things in the telling of the movie, because they're always going to do that, but when Reed decides that they may be contagious and they have to stay inside the Baxter building. And even so, before, you said he stretched too far. You're right, because Reed Richards he's not as successful as Tony Stark. He's not as charismatic. He's not as charismatic as Dr. Henry Pym either. Hank Pym is actually... We were talking about, because I was talking about that to the same... Brett and Tanner and I were talking about... Brett brought this up, the Fantastic Four, and I said, yeah, I'm excited to see it, but not the female Silver Surfer, because that's way later in the story. You've got all these other characters. And then he started talking about, Avengers and X-Men and one of the... They made major mistakes in the first couple movies, but, dude, they're movies based on lore of comics. So go with it, enjoy it, have fun. Don't beat yourself up. Supposed to be like this. Nobody wants to hang around that guy. But with the Avengers and the X-Men, in the Avengers, you left out Giant Man, you left out Hank and Wasp. And in the Avengers, in the X-Men, and they left out Mockingbird, but she doesn't really come in until the 80s. And in X-Men, you left out Angel and Beast in the first movie. Well, Angel's all the money, and Beast is all the, he's the reason Cerebro and the Blackbird exists, and, Cyclops' optic goggles and various other, a lot of other shit. Beast is constantly inventing. He can't go out in public, so he just hides in a cave and invents stuff. But Tony Stark and Hank, Dr. Hank Pym, they're the hey scientists that make a lot of money in the Marvel world. Reed Richards is probably fourth or fifth on the line. He doesn't even really have the charisma of Hammer, or what's the other? There's another competitor of Stark that's a real asshole, but the guy's like super charismatic. He's like a used car salesman, but he's attractive, so all the women get.
Well, even if you think about it, when you go to Spider-Man, when you go to his dad.
Spider-Man's dad? No one knows who Spider-Man's dad is.
Not his dad. The Green Goblin.
Osborn.
Osborn Court.
Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. I like the alternate personality.
He's ingenious. and he created a lot of stuff. So he's way up there in the tech realm.
Yeah.
He's way up there with money and stuff on it. So he can go head to head with Iron Man. He could
Iron
go
Man,
head to head with
uh,
Hank Pym,
yeah.
even Mr. Fantastic, because Norman Osborn knows what he's doing and stuff. With Reed Richards I think what drives him is he wants to be perfect. It's about the science, but it's his fear of failure that drives him. He wants to succeed at all costs.
I would go one step further. That's always a deep-seated fear, but that's just deep-seated fear of a lot of people. That's I got that fear that I'm gonna fuck. I'm more afraid of screwing up than I am of anything else. But the problem is that Tony Stark, Hammer, and Pym, and they either make weapons or they make things that the public is going to need and use. Where Reed Richards, he doesn't really have the capitalist drive. He relies more on grants, and he also his science saves the world. That doesn't pay the bills, though. That
he's more of an ideologue, and he wants to make everybody better.
Yeah.
So that's what makes him different. That's what makes him different than everybody else, and I think that's where they kind of misunderstand Reed Richards and why he stretches himself thin. He wants to fix what he broke, and he wants to make everybody's life better, even to his own detriment. And that's what makes him a visionary, but puts the blinders on. So when Reed Richards turns evil, and when they talk about the Maker and the evil version of it, same thing happens with the Maker. He is tunnel vision.
Yeah.
He wants to do it for a particular reason. So with Reed Richards, he does that sometimes he becomes neglectful.
See, I've been a huge fan of the Fantastic Four when I was small, and you are right because here we go. It's on a hook. Damn it. Oh, okay. Teamwork, because that's kind of it. Without the other three, Richards would be another Dr. Freeze.
Yep.
He wouldn't probably have stretchy powers. I mean, not, but in the scope of the Marvel Universe, if he didn't have Ben and Sue, and Johnny's kind of like the package deal, and we'll get into his psychology in a minute. But if Reed, right now we're focusing on Reed, and he's the most complex, and we're going to be discussing him the most, because Reed is your unsung, hopeless romantic. He's trying to, not necessarily, I mean, yeah, he wants to make everybody happy, but most importantly, he wants everybody to leave him alone, because people will not stop asking him to do things on every single level of society, in his personal life, in his professional life, with the government, with the police. The problem is they kind of play him down in the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of this goofball in the one, the actor was perfect looking that played Reed in the first movie where Jessica, what the fuck? I got to look his name up because it just went out of my head. Because the guy that played Dr. Doom in that movie, besides having the European accent, he was really good as Doom. Because Doom is charismatic. Doom is everything. Oh, it pops right up. Look at that. Oh, did it come out today? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it came out. It came out a couple of days ago, but people are talking about it, and people are looking about it, and because
luxuries like going to the movies or buying them online.
But the thing is, what happens, like what I was saying, like exactly what you're saying, is because they put the Smurfette in it, it's kind of derailing it.
Did you say Smurfette? Because that's all I heard.
The Smurfette. They're calling her the Silver Smurfette.
Oh, they not even that is so stupid.
Yeah. And it's because, like you said, they're jumping the gun with the movie, and it's taking the taste out of it because. If you don't want
film is connection.
Oh, Norrinrad. If you don't want the Silver Surfer, you could have put Nova in there, and nobody would have batted an eye. Nobody would have said anything. It's comics accurate. People went, all right, cool. Yeah. They could have changed her flame to a different type of flame to make it different than Johnny Storm. But put her, if you want a woman herald, they're already precedent for it. But they went and took the what if story, and it was Shia LaBeouf was, instead of Norman Rad, he died and she became the Silver Surfer. So what if? So that's what they're taking with it. So a lot of people are like, well, if you're gonna put a Silver Surfer in, put the Silver Surfer in. If not, put any of the other heralds of Galactus. Yeah. There's males, females. It would have worked, but yet they kiboshed it. So what happened was it's taking the steam out of everything, and with the characters being like it is, like where you talk about Reed Richards, he's one of the driving forces for the Fantastic Four. Yeah, because he got them, and even though it was by accident they got their powers, but his ambition drove him to it, so he feels guilty for it.
He does.
Because of what happened to him, he feels guilty for it.
Jon Grufeld is Reed Richards, and Chris Evans was Johnny Storm, Michael Chitlis, and Julian McMahon was Victor Von Doom. But you have enough with all the stories that you don't need to rush into plots. Mm-hmm. For some reason, Marvel thinks that they have to... DC movies, or the DC shows, are like fishing. You're hooked in. You want to watch the whole season. This is going to be so gross. I apologize to our viewers ahead of time, but hey, I kind of want an over 21 or over 18 audience. I do not want kids watching the show. We don't make it for kids. We swear a lot. I smoke weed. They don't. But I drink and smoke weed during this show. Well, Rob, you may have a drink now and again, but anyway. But Marvel can't, to make a gross porn reference, Marvel can't wait to blow their load on a preview. What, we're going to make a movie about this character? Oh, here's 5 storylines all at once. Oh, where's my sock? Dude, fishing. It's fishing. If you make a good movie, people will watch it.
That's the running joke, is that Marvel can't make a rated R movie. And that's why the Blade movie was canceled. The whole joke of the whole thing, the only one who can make an R-rated movie and do good and make money at the box office is Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool. Yeah. And that's because he's doing it. It's not Marvel. It's in conjunction with Marvel. Because they had Blade. Wesley Snipes proved it. It's a seller. And what happened was they even have the Oscar winner, I forget the name, actor for it. And they announced it. And they can't get a script together. They can't get a story right. Yeah. And they canceled it. Because he's going to go star in the new Jurassic Park movie. Yeah. So they dropped the ball with a great character. We're talking Blade. You make a movie, people will come to see it. And they can't get it. They killed it. They can't come up to it. They can't commit to it.
You know what I want to see is... What's that? I want to see, but I want them to write it for a couple years before they make it. I want to see Dark Man 4 with Liam Neeson in it, but have other actors, because he's too old to be an action hero now. But you could have old Dark Man, and you could have, every time he puts on the skin, it could just be a different younger actor. That's 20. But the first Dark Man movie was amazing. That's why when I heard Raimi was going to do Spider-Man, I was like, this could be really awesome, like Darkman, or this could be really terrible if the money behind the film has too much to say. And luckily, the first one was really good because it was a mix of, hey, it's stuck to the original material with, this is where the producers got involved. Like the fight in the hallway with Flash Thompson and Peter. It's like Peter would have just taken the beating. He wouldn't let anybody even think for a minute that he was Spider-Man.
Yep. Well, that's the big point. Is what happens is with Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi did Darkman because he couldn't get the rights to do another superhero. They wouldn't let him to do it, so he created his own hero, and he created Darkman, which in itself
It's
was
an
funny is that
amazing superhero.
amazing superhero, amazing psychology on it. Even though it's goofy and campy, it's a great hero.
Oh, it is goofy
That
and campy, but we love it anyway.
we love it anyway. But it became its own thing, which is ironically because they said no, you can't do it. He can't do it. Then because of what he did with Darkman, that led him later to do Spider-Man. And I like this. I like the Raimi Spider-Man. I like the first one. The second one is my favorite. With Doctor Octopus was great
It's really
because of the
good.
story. It's really good.
But they gave Dr. Octopus a wife, and they took away his German accent, which is one of the most fun things ever, is to hear him every 15 minutes going, Spider-Man, in the cartoon.
Yeah, but they didn't mess it up as much as like the third movie. They put too much chefs in the kitchen. It was too diluted. The third one went off the rails. But even with Doctor Strange, where Raimi was in it, I have mixed emotions about that one because it's not a Doctor Strange movie. But the parts where Raimi was in it, where you saw the Raimi how it is, like the Evil Dead and stuff aspect of it, the horror aspect, beautiful, greatly done. But you can see where the committee got into it, and you went, "Oh,
Yeah.
we got to hit this beat. We got to do that."
I don't ever think there should be a Marvel's Zombies movie, but if you're going to make one, please, God, have Raimi direct it. Oh, my God.
Raimi do it. Yep.
Because it's
It
going to
would be
suck if they have one of the more modern, let's focus on the mundane and just jump through the action. Because that's the problem with the Fantastic Four movie is, except for the end of the preview, we're just focusing on the mundane. This is just like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of the comic book before the action happens at the end. And then we have to buy the next one for the big, stellar, awesome fight. Or the big thing about sized issue.
Well, you know what they said about the trailer? And I was looking at the reviews and stuff, that it's kind of meh because you don't find the humor in it. You don't find it uplifting and so forth. You don't find excitement. You don't know the threat. I mean, they show Galactus at the end of it.
Yeah.
But they said it's kind of meh because it doesn't show who they are or whatever. It's kind of like it's kind of like a meta commercial was, hey, we're here. Hey. So it's kind of muted that a lot of people look at it and go, there's no invention, there's no action.
Yeah.
It doesn't set up anything.
Yeah. Oh, look, the thing likes to cook. Well, yeah, dude, he can't just walk down the fucking street. People freak out, okay? I mean, even though he's famous and everybody knows who he is, they're going to mob him. They're going to be like, oh, my God, Ben Grimm! And they're going to want his autograph and talk to him for 20 minutes, and he's not going to be able to get where he's going because it's New York.
Right. But by that same
Yeah.
the same standard, everybody looks at it and goes, oh, that's kind of boring. Because people, like, this is how they're spoofing on the trailer. I don't know who did it, but someone took the end part with Galactus and just put the soundtrack of Godzilla. And you hear the...
Not Bambi?
But it's funny. But that's how people are spoofing it. So that tells me already that people are not taking this movie. They're looking at it as a spoof or a joke. They're not taking it realistic.
Okay. We could spend the rest of the time of this thing just talking about Reed. Because there's a lot going on with Reed. Reed is Atlas for most stories. He constantly has the fucking weight of the world on his shoulders. But he also has to deal with the public. He has to deal with Johnny and Ben argue all the time. And when Johnny's not fighting with Ben, he's fighting with his sister. And for a minute, let's go to Sue, because Sue is the older sibling of Sue and Johnny. Sue is drop-dead gorgeous, and even though she's in, I think they meet in college, if I remember correctly, she already has a modeling career, but I think her parents are insisting that get an education because you can't fall back on that, and what if something happens, and because it's written in the 60s, so it's very down to earth, 1940s, 1930s influenced thinking.
Norman Rockwell. Yeah.
Exactly. So Sue already is a strong, independent, modern woman for the 60s. She's a more refined Marilyn Monroe, if you guys would agree with that in the comics. She's not this super sex symbol. She's actually a lot more worldly aware. I mean, yeah, she's drop dead gorgeous, and everybody wants pictures of her in a bikini, but she also possesses a college degree. I forget what she gets her degree in. I know it's not science or anything to do with what Richard...
No, but I forget what it is, but she's just inept science.
Got a bachelor's, if I remember correctly. She's not in school for long. Reed's in school for fucking forever.
Yeah, but she's not an imbecile.
Well, he gets his first doctorate, and then he gets another one, and then he gets another. It's not like he was having trouble. He was just like, oh, I want to do that, too. It was like that. Huh?
I would say she was more like Maureen O'Hara than...
Good point.
Yeah.
Because very intelligent, beautiful, standout, striking in all ways, able to carry herself very well in all forms. She's well-spoken, very intelligent, and she was the center of attention upon walking into a room.
Oh, yeah.
So she was of that level in this, as I would say, in the 60s. She was that type of a person, more so than Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was a striking beauty, but she was often considered less than the most intelligent woman in the area.
Marilyn was more into music and the performing arts, and she knew a lot about that. But yeah, I wouldn't want to get into a physics or theoretical.
Well, not just that. She was downplayed as to her intelligence because she was the blonde bombshell.
Yeah. No.
So
she
was downplayed.
But yeah, she was a blonde bombshell. But Marilyn, actually, I would say, honestly, I used Marilyn immediately because that was a reference that everybody can identify with. But I would think of her. I would think of Sue Storm Richards more as like a Nora Charles, the way that Myrna Loy portrays her in the 1930s Thin Man movies. Where,
yes,
if you go back and watch those movies, and I have about 10 years ago because I'm obsessed with her, and the movies are cute, and I've never read the books. So, Nora realizes and accepts Nick for the scumbag private eye that he is, also a raging alcoholic, because she knows that deep down inside he's very intelligent, but he's also got a heart of gold. He actually gives a shit about people. That's jobs I've kept for years and jobs I've had briefly. I've heard this from so many managers and directors. You care. That's something I can't teach. I need you to learn this. So it's not as common a human quality as you would imagine to really care about strangers and to give a shit about them just because you may not like them. I can't fucking stand them, but the Tupac quote is the best. I still want you to eat, just not at my table. And that speaks volumes because I'd risk my life to save the life of somebody I can't stand if they got into a situation that was they didn't purposefully, oh no, I'm in danger. Doesn't count, dude. You're on your own. Fuck you. But if like all of a sudden shit went down and you have to jump into rescuer mode, oh yeah. But with Sue and Nora, they also understand that their ego and their intelligence also understand that they're not always the center of the universe. Sue doesn't really have a problem with all of the attention that Reed gets because she's way more focused on the fact that Reed spends way too much time in the lab every day. So they miss that her focus is getting her husband out of the lab, and later getting her child's father out of the lab, who also happens to be her husband, because if it wasn't for Sue, Reed would never leave the lab. He'd stay in there forever. He'd live in there. He'd like an air mattress, and that would be
that would be his existence.
But she understands. Yeah, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Reed is the highest level functioning autistic because he is missing that knowledge, that understanding of what we would consider to be the real world, the normal world.
Yeah.
That's why he is so sought after by the government, by all of these entities that are charged with protecting the world, taking the world forward, taking science for science's sake to make these things happen. Not because it's good or bad, but because it's science. We're going to extend the knowledge, and ultimately we believe that the extension of knowledge is a good thing. Okay, that's wonderful, but he is very narrow, and that is that autistic spectrum that he exists on. He has in many cases, in the comic books and in all of the movies, sometimes he has the social skills of a pit bull that has not had the opportunity to be human beings.
Yeah. No,
He's used to, I'm focused here. This is what I'm doing. I can't. Why are you distracting me from this important thing?
Awesome stuff.
Oh, you want me to say hello? Hi. Back to this.
Back to the. I'll be in my room. But no, that Sue does understand that, and she's witnessed it multiple times. He saves the fucking world. You shouldn't be bothering him too much. Really, they parodied the Venture Brothers. The Venture Brothers parodied the Fantastic Four with the Impossibles. And it was the Visible Woman and the Human Torch and the Callus. And, you know, they really were mean to the Thing and Johnny, the Human Torch. But they kind of nailed the relationship between Reed and Sue. What about your son? My son? You know, Rocket? You know, he's your only son. Because they say that madness and genius go hand in hand, and, you know, Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, these guys are all geniuses, but also total weirdos. So it would make sense that even in fantasy that, oh, yeah, I never really thought about that, but fuck yeah, Reed Richards is autistic, but he's a high socially functioning autistic. He's the way David Bowie doesn't get enough props for his acting ability. Everyone focuses on his prolific music career, which, oh my God. You know how many Bowie songs I have, even the ones from Labyrinth, on my MP3 player? Thank you, Christine. But The Prestige, the movie The Prestige, guys, Guy, you've seen it, Rob? Bowie knocked it out of the park playing Tesla. And honestly, that's kind of how Richards is. That's how Reed is. He's very kind of, God, Rob, you're onto something. He's very autistic in the aspect of, or ADD, because he's just like hyper focused on whatever scientific doodah he's either inventing or he absolutely needs to save every human on the planet. And at that time, because the best thing about Sue is that her invisibility also mirrors her purity. She's actually a really good person. She's not a super nag. She's not needy. She doesn't pull him out of the lab to argue about decorating or, you know, where they're going to go on vacation or baby clothes or things like that. She bothers him when it's important if he's super busy. She doesn't bother him with trivia. She handles it herself because she can handle it because she's smart. She only brings him in on the major things.
Sue has something that she has a femininity, a strong will. She knows her place. She knows when she's most effective. I just hope in the movie they don't play her as a girl boss, because once you get that ego involved and once you get that point in it, you lose the whole message of Sue.
Yeah.
Because her it's not her ego that makes her powerful.
Yeah.
It's not that she's super ultra feminist that makes her powerful. She's feminine, but she lets it show.
Honestly,
she lets her yes.
Okay.
If you really look at it,
so
she's not going to be.
If Joss Whedon was directing this movie, he could make Sue a combination from the Firefly Serenity characters. He would have to take like Zoe, Anara, and Kaylee, and that would be Sue Storm Richards. Because she's a strong badass when she needs to be. She saves the whole fucking group all the time. But then she doesn't like fall apart and weep about it or go on and on and on about how she saved everybody for a week and a half. She just does the job she needs to do, like Zoe, like Anara, like Kaylee. You do the job you need to do, and then later I'll kiss you and tell you how cute you were when you were doing it. But that's after the fact when we're all alone. You don't need my naggy super, because we might be attacked again. You know, there's going to be another threat. So Sue and Reed have a relationship like Gomez and Morticia. They're absolutely obsessed with one another. They're just both super busy in the same area.
The big thing about Reed, and I understand what Reed and why Reed and Sue got together, it's because Reed is the only one that sees her for her intellect and who she is. Everybody else sees her as the beauty. They want her as the beauty. They want her as the eye candy.
Yeah.
So Sue has that a little bit about her that she's not taken seriously. So she's like the supermodel, the 10, that either people are afraid to come at her or you get all the guys hitting on her. Where Reed, with his even he's autistic, he's not your normal guy. He's not suave. Like Tony Stark would hit on her.
Oh, God, you know, yeah. He'd be like, hey, babe. Not Hank, because Hank needs to... Janet is all his money. He doesn't hit on other women.
On other women, but he would talk to her, would come up and so forth, and he would gab with...
Hi, how you doing? He'd treat her... He'd be like Cap, you know, or Thor, where you're an equal, but that's where it stands. Yeah. That's where it stops.
So, with Reed...
moves on you. Yeah.
He sees her for who she is, and is not trying to take advantage of her. That's why she is drawn to Reed, because Reed is not trying...
Reed's kind of socially retarded, yeah.
Well, he's socially retarded, or he's so advanced that he can't be bothered with it. Because if you think of Reed, a lot of time he's like, okay, these little social norms, I'm not going to be bothered with it because it takes too much of my time, my brain stuff on it.
Can we get back in the lab now?
He goes, I want to do important things. So to him, to us, it looks like, you know, a little retardation, but it could be that he's just so focused that he's got something nagging at him going, okay, what's the Dami paradox? How can I fix the Dami paradox? What can I do with it? Is it time? That's what he thinks about it. To us, we're like, what about the Riemann? You know, like the Riemann hypothesis. Yeah. It's you know, all he does is get stuck on it. So he's so driven.
Wait. You've opened another door. Reed and Professor X are two of the few humans that early on, besides Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., yes, I'm aware of this, and the other world powers that are powerful enough, the Kree, the Skrull, and the Shi'ar, and there's a lot more races than that, but they're like empires out in space that are at war with each other. And Reed, among a handful of others, excuse me, that was horrible, and it was painful too, is the first one to start receiving transmissions from those groups and learning about the Skrulls and learning about the Shi'ar and the Kree and the Nova Corps or Captain Marvel Corps, whatever. And I really want to see Captain Marvel because Brie Larson is very attractive, but then she opens her mouth and that all goes away. Huh?
You bring up Xavier, and you've got these two. They are at the same. I would postulate that they are at the same intellectual level in many ways. The difference is that Xavier proves that Reed has the autism that Xavier does not, because Xavier has that capacity. He understands the social aspect. He understands the broad spectrum of life in the universe because he understands I have to know this knowledge. I have to understand this detail, this technical, this condition. But I also have to be able to speak to this child. I have to be able to speak to this person. I have to be able to speak to this entity in such a way that I can touch them. I can reach them. Reed's not interested in that aspect. Oh, no. You mean I have to say hello to you? Oh, okay. But this is where I am at. That's why he falls hard on the autistic scale. He's not a narcissist because he's not the one that has to be everything unto himself. He's worried about, he has an extreme amount of empathy for the larger group, but he cannot do the one-on-one, and he doesn't understand the social aspects. He doesn't understand how to work and play with others in the sandbox like Xavier does. Xavier can come in and say, let me explain to you about quantum physics, but I also want to put it to you in such a way that you, as a 10-year-old child, will be able to look at me and go, thank you very much, because now I have an understanding and a belief. Can we go play? Can we go play with my dolls now? Let's go play with your dolls now. Yeah. Reed couldn't do that. Reed could never make that change in connection.
No, he can barely relate to his kids.
Well, and it's not just that. He couldn't do that with the government people that he's dealing with. He passes them off. He says, this is all you need to know. Yeah. You need to move. If you can't understand it at this level, I don't have the time to educate you for it.
Or he'll
but I'm not dismissing you for other reason. I'm dismissing you because you're interrupting me completing what you need.
Yeah. Because a lot of the times, especially if it's government, he'll have Ben handle that if they get out of line, because the thing is scary, and after a while...
Well, Ben has more social skill, but yeah, he also leverages the fact that, let me explain to you, you listen to what I have to say, or I'm going to pick up the building and hit you.
You know, I fought the Hulk. I heard you lost. I still fought the Hulk. Okay, you get that. I mean, not just anybody can fight the Hulk.
Ben?
When were you fighting the Hulk? You weren't there.
Yeah, no, he lost, and he's okay with that because the Hulk is way stronger than the Thing.
Ben, in the Fantastic Four, when I read it, and I always got the thing, he was like the older brother always protecting Reed, because he understood because of his enormity, and he might have picked on that, with his autism. He was going to get picked on. He was going to get bullied. He was going to be misunderstood. So he always was his protector. So if Reed couldn't say it, Ben said it for him.
Yeah.
Ben had a little bit of an ego because he was a good-looking guy. People came up to him and so forth.
And he had a good military career as a test pilot. I mean, he was Air Force, he was Navy.
He's brave. He's military. So he knows how to protect people. He knows what to do when he's commanded to it. He knows how. He's military. So he's protecting Reed in his own way. So when he becomes the Thing, it's kind of an embodiment of his protection and what he does, because he knows, okay, in a fight, sometimes you can't smart your way out of it when you have nothing there. Sometimes you have to fight your way out. So he's the realist with all of them, because even he defends Sue. He'll even defend Johnny if need be. And and sometimes Johnny likes just to test him. Just like to test him. He's like somebody poking at the Hulk, trying to get him mad. That's what Johnny does. But with Ben understands that, okay, sometimes you have to get your hands dirty, and Reed's not the one to do it. I'll do it. So he takes on that burden. He takes on that burden of holding them up a little bit, going, okay, if you need something done, I'm the man to do it. Let's do it. So he becomes a Thing. He loses his looks. So in a way, he loses his identity and is trying to grow into a new identity. So he's no longer Ben. Now he's the Thing. Everybody thinks he's Ben.
For a long time.
A long time. I mean, he left the Fantastic Four because of it, to go in search of himself, because he's no longer Ben. what he
She-Hulk took
was.
over for him, and then he came back.
Yeah,
And
he came back,
You
but that was
know
part of
what's
his.
interesting is that as you talk about this, every Marvel team is every character in a Marvel team is a part of a single whole. And what I mean by that is the fact that, as Guy, you had pointed out at the very beginning, each of these characters represents a portion of what would be a total person. So you have the intellect, you have the empathy, you have the strength, and you have the recklessness. So in this case, that was how Marvel built and brought all of these characters together to make every one of their teams humanized. So that way, when you read the comic book and you thought about the Fantastic Four, overtly you were thinking about each of the four characters.
yeah,
But subconsciously, you were looking at the Fantastic Four as a single entity. This is a single, for lack of a better term, single person. These are the four characteristics that build this person. And the person is the Fantastic Four that is going out and doing this. And when one part of the Fantastic Four, when one character falls or fails or is unable to do their bit, that is a part of the traditional hero's tale. And now we have to bring the whole has to be brought along, and they have to learn this new lesson. When that lesson is learned, then the whole comes back again. And the Fantastic Four, the character of the Fantastic Four, returns and moves forward. It's Ulysses finding out that what needs to be done to get past the sirens. It's Hercules figuring out how to get how to clear the stables, how to move on to the next step that he needs to in his life. Each of these, and that's one of the things that has distinguished Marvel over DC for probably the first 3 decades of both of their existence. The fact that Marvel had really pushed to do those things, either overtly they understood they were doing it, or more likely there was a subconscious component to it, and they weren't realizing they were doing it, but it happened, it worked well, and they picked up on it at some point and carried it through. And that's where we see the disconnect, I think, in the motion pictures versus the comic books and the books, is the fact that another group now owns and manages Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios isn't an entity in and of itself. It's owned by Disney. Disney controls that resource, and they have a very tight confine of what they want to do with it. Now, if Disney were intelligent, they would spin off another division that they could reasonably separate themselves from, so that they could allow that kind of growth to come back into it. That's why DC is able to do better. Bless you. That's why DC is able to do better in its modern programming with the television programs, because they're following that comic book standard. I have a tale to tell, and I need to give you enough to move the story along, to give you the character development, to allow my hero or heroes to fail, stumble, pick themselves up, move to the next, and see that we now have something else. And I can continue that storyline, and I can continue to carry over the foibles, the problems. Yeah. You fought this character, you think you've won, but at the end, we find out that you missed a step, they picked up a step, and you have to come and see them again. You'll see that in the next iteration, the next episode, as opposed to having to wait for the next comic book to be printed. Marvel hasn't done that. Marvel hasn't been able to pick that up. So the Scarlet Witch television program was able to do that for Marvel, but that's gone now. They haven't been able to carry that forward. They need to do something like that for a lot of these characters to carry them forward, but it has to be done outside of Disney's control, outside of Disney's direct control, to be allowed to build these things up the way Stan Lee had made those changes when he first started introducing more in-depth humanist characteristics into these characters, into these storylines. And that's why they became so popular. That's why really they really spoke to a large demographic in a lot of areas, because people could look at it. And we've spoken about this before. They could look at it and say, I see this. Whether or not I overtly recognize it, I can see myself there. I can see my stumbles, my foibles, my problems. So if Peter Parker can overcome this, if Logan can realize that, if each of these characters can overcome these conditions and move forward, I can do so too, and people get picked up. The DC stuff was more, my hero, my superhero is perfect. Oh, I made one foible, one mistake, but I have come back, and now I am perfect again. No.
I talked to the editor, and now we're right back on track with the plot.
What Rob says is totally true, because one of the best series that Marvel has wasn't done by Marvel, was done by Netflix, and that was Netflix's Daredevil. Yeah. And they did something with that show and with the other shows, that they got Daredevil right.
Yes.
They put the complexity, they put the hardship, they put the violence, everything that we love Daredevil for. So when you look at that series on its own, and even the offshoots, Iron Fist, when you looked at Jessica
Jones, the Punisher, the Defenders, all of them were good.
All of them were great. And now Marvel is trying to duplicate what they had, but sometimes they can't get out of their own way, because what happens is these are stories that are nice stories. There's not always a winner that happens at the end. Sometimes the hero loses. So in Daredevil, he dealt punishment, but also got punishment.
Yeah, he was always kicked all the time. All these guys
all the time. But he picked himself back up, dusted him. He did the hero's journey. So through the 3 seasons of it, you saw him become the man without fear. And everybody plays a joke on it. Is that, how can you be a man without fear? No, it's his overcoming his fear, becoming Daredevil. So when you see that, what happens, he earns his suit. He earns his horns. So it's not he becomes Daredevil overnight. It's idea he progression. So what happens is, you see, and Kingpin in that series is way more violent, but way more threatening than in some of the other renditions I've seen him in. And I'm like, whoa, he was a good adversary for Daredevil in the Netflix series. Well, I haven't finished the new series. I'm leaving that judgment out. But just going by the Netflix series, he's a great villain.
Yeah, we're getting off the Fantastic Four, but for Daredevil, I would agree 100%, because like the director from the mid-90s one with Ben Affleck as Daredevil, and which was the only movie to have Braille in the opening credits, by the way. History. That there's some bar trivia for you. But they wanted to create Wilson Fisk as Wilson Fisk, but he also said, I wanted to get the most talented, huge actor I could find. And that's when they went with Michael Clark Duncan, who was a huge rising star. Going from one of Debo's friends in Friday to playing Wilson Fisk. Dude, in acting, that's like, that's like climbing Mount Everest and getting to the top. If you're a comic book geek like us, because Wilson Fisk is called the Kingpin for a reason. I don't know who his DC counterpart is.
But I said that to go with Rob's
point.
Ra's
al Ghul.
Probably. But I said that to go with Rob's point, that sometimes, like what he was saying about Marvel, it's just sometimes Disney has to get out of Marvel's way. In order to make the story come out, that sometimes it's not going to be a PG-13 story, because you couldn't do Daredevil, and I'm just using that as an example, as a PG-13 movie. Yeah. It doesn't work.
Especially
it doesn't come across.
Daredevil post 1983, when Frank Miller takes the
when takes over. So even at that, that's why they failed and they canceled the Blade movie, because they cannot figure a way to do it. And yes, you can. any of us could write a Blade movie right now.
Well,
I could write a Blade movie. It just they're not going to do it.
Vampires, fighting vampires. Okay.
Fighting vampires, yeah. So what happened?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, that's why they canceled it, because Mahershala Ali was the leader. You have an Oscar winner. He's going to give a great performance. You have a great actor. Yeah. You have a great IP, and you can't nail down a story, which tells me it's not his fault. It's the writers, and they have no idea what to do with Blade. They don't know how to handle it.
He's way too 1980s. So the best thing about the Blade movies is how not just the Blade. Okay, comic book movies are kind of a joke. The Captain America movie and the Spider-Man movie, and you don't until you get to Darkman and Blade and the Crow and the Punisher. Comic book movies are kind of few and far between. What?
They were what we would call one-shot graphic novel.
Pretty much.
Comic book movies that really pulled off well were a one-shot graphic novel. The Crow worked as a one-shot graphic novel. When it came out, I think there were 5 or 8 graphic novels that came, or graphic sections that came out for The Crow that told the entire tale.
Yeah.
But the film itself was the same as a graphic novel because you had the capacity to tell the tale in 2 hours, and you could do it reasonably. Yeah. So you can do that with Darkman. That's another one because we started at this event. This is what happened. I can carry it through as this gentleman
need a little time.
Yeah. Exactly. It's The Shadow.
The Shadow. I was about to mention
The Shadow came out.
Alec Baldwin.
That one was another really good one because it played to a 2-hour film. You had a straight progression, and we could tell you what it was, and you didn't lose anything. You didn't have to know any deeper background knowledge. Yeah. Batman, when they did the Batman films, those were done appropriately because I gave you a taste,
89.
And then I brought you through the first graphic novel.
Yep.
Now I can give you a second and a third and a fourth, and that's the way that Marvel should be approaching all of these films. If I was going to do Fantastic Four and I'm going to start it back in the 1960s, that's fine. You run it in the 1960s, you carry it as well as you can, and then you make your next progression is now I'm going to bring them forward. I'm going to bring them forward 10 years. I'm going to bring them forward 20 years.
Well,
like what they tried to do with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
That has to be your progressions if you're going to keep with canon.
Here's the difference. Comic book movies need to take a notation not just from the comic book shows, but also James Bond. Okay? Yeah. How many James Bond movies are there? There's only been one reboot, Casino Royale, that I can name. But when you saw Octopussy or Live and Let Die or From Her Majesty's Secret Service or The Spy Who Loved Me, you did not have a flashback of how James Bond became James Bond. You just had the story. So you don't always, that was the problem with all of the Batman movies after 89. You know how he became Batman. We don't need a refresher course. Let's get on with the plot. Because the best parts of the Batman and all of the other movies is when they're on patrol. That's what comic book readers want to see because that's a great deal of what the comic books we were reading, where Spider-Man or Batman or whoever is hunting down the villain. And he knows who did it, but he can't find him. And all this other crime happens in between him looking for the guy he's actually looking for. Marvel really was getting good with Jessica Jones and Daredevil, and they had that dispute, and now that's all over because I've said it again, I said it before, I've been screaming it since time I learned about it and had the idea. The biggest miss for Sony or whoever had the rights for all the Marvel first the first movies that you should have made were Marvel team-ups, because there was a whole successful Marvel team-up comic book run. How many have you two read? A couple hundred myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was different. It wasn't always Spider-Man. It wasn't always Daredevil. They didn't always team up together. A lot of the times Moon Knight would show up, or one of the X-Men, or Havoc, or whoever was running around, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, whoever.
Well, that's the biggest thing is what happens is sometimes these movies, and going what you say, Bill, exactly. It just, they don't follow through. Because in the Eternals that nobody watched, that was the first appearance of the Black Knight, was supposed to be the Black Knight, and you also hear Blade when he was talking about it. So the problem what happens with movie Marvel, is they don't do what comic book Marvel did, that if they would have brought Blade, let's say in this last Doctor Strange movie, you don't have to bring him into the movie. You just have to make him run coincident with the movie that he shows up, because it's supernatural in aspect. So he could have been here since the whole Infinity Saga, but he's dealing with something else, so he couldn't help. He's a different type of hero. That's why they call him the Rise of the Midnight Suns. It's a supernatural hero. So he could have been off fighting who knows what at the same time that we were fighting Thanos.
Ghost Rider, Son of Satan, Blade. Who?
Werewolf by Night.
Werewolf by Night. Who else was in it? There's like 7 of them in there.
And the funny thing is, they already did a Werewolf by Night special show on Disney Plus, and it was fantastic. They introduced the supernatural into Marvel already. But what happens is they kind of dropped the ball and left it there. And I'm like, continue it, because that's your avenue to bring in Blade. Right there, you already have it.
Blade,
but they didn't.
Ghost Rider, Son of Satan.
all of the rest of the Midnight Suns, all of the rest of the different actors, and there's so many of them that you could bring in that whole avenue, but they chose not to because they're gun shy about it, because this is R-rated material. So what happens is when you're dealing with Ghost Rider, when you're dealing with them and the different characters that you have,
Ghost Rider stories are brutal.
They're brutal. So these are characters that are brutal. So these are for mature, and even part of the
brutal. What Ghost Rider does to them is brutal.
Ghost Rider, Moon Knight,
and stare. Dude,
so
that's
what happens
is horrifying. You don't want to show kids that.
And what happens? They're horror type of comics in that aspect. So I think Marvel is gun shy, because even with Moon Knight, they handled it with white gloves.
Yeah,
I've seen the series; it's good, and they have horror aspects to it, but they kind of play it off. Where when you get into it,
should be an adult. Moon Knight should be an adult comic. Most of them really. Spider-Man should not be. The Fantastic Four should not be. But I mean, most of the other Marvel comics should be adult. The best thing is that, like, Luke Cage should be more of a symbol, because they talk about it in the first comic, and in the first episode of the Netflix show, which I watched all the time because I really like Luke Cage, Hero for Hire.
Luke Cage is awesome.
Luke Cage is great because he's a respected vigilante, which really doesn't happen within the superhero community. I know that's a very strange, hypocritical statement, but in the movies and in society, everybody loves Deadpool. In the comic book world, they do not like him. They don't want him around. He's an asshole. He kills people. They don't agree with a lot of what he does. He's also has multiple personalities, and he's a certified homicidal maniac. He's not somebody you want at a function or at a party. And that's why he shows up and everybody's like, And he's like, hey guys, it's the mercenary with the mouth. I'm like, why are you here? Why did you come? Because he's going to start shooting people, and that's not what superheroes do.
Well, the good thing about Luke Cage, and what I like with the Netflix series and with this on it, he's a superhero for the people, of the people, by the people.
Yeah.
So what it is he goes to his neighborhood and helps the people in his neighborhood. He cares about the people. So he's the polar opposite of the Punisher to way, because he does everything to protect his people and go around. So that's why he's loved by him. That's why he doesn't wear a costume. That's why he helps out. That's why Iron Fist gravitated to him, and they work great together, because you have the great team together. Iron Fist
really
and
I had
each.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, it's because he does things for the people, so he doesn't have a lot of bravado.
Well,
so he goes around.
There's a lot of
people.
biblical. Oh, I'm sorry, Guy. I don't mean to keep talking over you. That's fucking rude. Go ahead.
Well, no, but I know where you're going with this. Is that there is a lot of biblical stuff with it, but he's a straight up man. He is who he is. He doesn't need to put a mask to show you anything different. So the one thing I like about him is that you know what you're getting with him, and he stands up for what he believes in. So he's in the streets, but he's trying to protect the streets, and he's going to protect it his way, the honest and truth way, and he's not going to be sketchy about it.
I would agree, because I would liken the Thing, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and there's others, not just them, Spider-Man as well, in the I will never fucking give up category, because all of the ones that I've mentioned have just been physically destroyed. They're almost like, and again, I'm not super familiar with Dragon Ball Z, but Goku is constantly beaten down and has to rise up to the next level and defeat the next enemy. And, well, that mirrors Iron Fist and all the other ones. And I thought that Luke Cage would have done a lot better because of all the biblical references, because in the show, they've changed it a lot. Yeah. It's not... Diamondback and Luke are not brothers in the comic book. In the comic book, he's from Harlem. He's not from Georgia. Whoa, Squidget's freaking out. So there are subtle differences between the comic and the show. They did an amazing job. What's his name that plays him? Mike.
I know.
Mike Carter.
I keep
he's fantastic to be Luke. See, Fenrir agrees. But it's more of a biblical. All of his enemies are snakes. There's Cottonmouth and Diamondback and Viper, and I mean they all have snake names, and they all are crime bosses. They are all these Marvel thugs that have superpowers for whatever reason, and they did a really good job portraying that on Netflix. Again, it's not going to be exact because it came out in 1972, and if you go back, it's really goofy. I still have the first episode of Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. He doesn't actually meet Iron Fist until way later. And then Iron Fist and Ghost Rider in Marvel kind of have the same fate. They both end up encased into crystals and imprisoned. I forget how Iron Fist gets out, but I think Mephisto somebody frees Ghost Rider. Yeah. Because I remember going down to 7th Street and 7th Avenue and Dunlap. There was a comic book store there in 1987, but it's not there anymore. And one of the writers for Strikeforce Morituri was down there, and I had him. I bought the comics, a couple of them. I don't know if I still have them. And I was asking him, "Do you think Ghost Rider will ever come back?" No. He's dead. He'll never come back. Meanwhile, 1992,
he came back. It was because
yes, he did.
It's because even back then, you brought up a good point. Even back then, and going back to Rob's point, is that Marvel doesn't know how to handle certain type of characters, so they languish. Because with Ghost Rider, it's hard for them to balance. Like what Disney's having trouble with it now, is that it's an extremely violent, extremely dark comic book. there are certain themes in that book that you're going to have to address to younger audiences, whether or not you want to do it or not. Supernatural aspects of it, violence aspects of it, morality plays. So when you look at that with Moon Knight and stuff, that's why it's always suggested for mature audience. That's why the whole Marvel Knights were developed. That's when Ghost Rider started coming back, was the Marvel Knights, when they made more of an adult comic, because they didn't know how to because you got Mephisto, the embodiment of the devil himself, in comic books. So how are you going to bring that to certain people are very edgy about that.
Yeah.
So with them, they don't know how to write it. And Marvel is really finding it hard enough with the Punisher, how to write the Punisher. And Punisher doesn't have the supernatural aspect of it. It just, what he does is violent. So even if you can't do Punisher right, you can't do Ghost Rider, Moon Knight. I don't think they're going to do it him justice. Werewolf by Night was a one-off. They canceled Blade, so I think they're really having a problem with these type of characters. And the only reason Deadpool got away with it, because it's not Disney.
Yeah. Well,
Fox. Fox.
Again, Ryan Reynolds knocked it out of the park when he played that role, and he's reprised it several times. And you have Deadpool has a loyalty. I mean, he's not going anywhere, folks. He's here to stay. I wouldn't be surprised if they made 2 more movies after the success of this last one. And it's funny.
Sorry.
He's funny. It's well written. It's well put together. The only thing that Deadpool is missing is the other 3 personalities that are in his constant eternal monologue. Like in the video game, where one's like the voice of a little kid when he's like drawing pictures and stuff. One's like a chain-smoking old man. Like in the video game when he walks up to the urinals and the bad guys are using, I wish I had some dick jokes, and then he kills those 2 guys.
Yeah. I think they addressed it a little bit with Blind Owl. I think they put Blind Owl in the movies as to replace the chain-smoking old man.
Yeah.
She kind of stands in for that. As for the other 2, I don't think they got anybody in yet or anybody to take their place. But it's gotten to a point that even Rob Liefeld is disowning the character. He's walking away. He won't deal with Marvel anymore because of what Marvel and all this stuff are doing it. Because I think even they got into a perversive place with Deadpool. Because Deadpool was designed to do social commentary on items going out in a funny way. Now, because of the movies and Ryan Reynolds, he's even become more of an a-hole. It's gotten to that point. So even Rob Liefeld says he's doing nothing with Marvel. He's done with it. So he's the creator of it. So that says a lot. I mean, he's going away from his own creation. So it's telling me, oh, something's going on here.
Well, you can only push something so far when it's in a... If you've created a new thing, push it as far as you like. If you go into an established area, these are the boundaries. One thing you brought up, too, and I think it's indicative of Galactus has to eat planets to survive. So our existence is, he doesn't really give a shit about us. We're no more than an anthill to him. And it's only through magic or other universe interference or Reed Richards that they're able to banish Galactus for a short amount of time because he always comes back. But Galactus moving takes a lot of power and energy, and he needs to eat solar systems in order to power his body to move. So he has this voracious appetite for Earth, and then, often Reed Richards and like Doctor Strange and other, even Doctor Doom sees the need and the necessity to make Galactus go away. Whereas DC's universe has Darkseid. And although you have the Skrulls in Marvel, the Kree are kind of doing their own thing, and the Shi'ar, one of the princesses of the Shi'ar, or the queen, or whatever, falls in love with Professor X. So that helps. They don't want to kill us right away. She wants to do him first, you know.
Oh my God! But you brought up a good point with it. Is that if you look at Norn Rad, the Silver Surfer,
yeah, who's a hero, he's a good, wonderful person.
He's a good, wonderful hero.
He sacrifices himself for his entire planet, and then Galactus fucks him over anyway.
Yeah, but what happens is he rolled the dice and said, "I will serve. I will be a service. Don't eat my planet.
Please don't kill my wife and children.
My wife and children. Don't kill them."
Okay, so he was, I won't.
You know, but you look at Galactus. A simple thing. It's like, what happens when you take an immovable object against an unstoppable force? Galactus is that unstoppable force. He's going to do it as he does it because he doesn't want to die. He's a natural thing of force. Yeah. So he's like the correction of it.
Reed Richards is the immovable object. Don't you dare destroy my lab! Oh my God! Yep.
And that goes back to that same back to like being autistic for a little thing of it. He looks at it like, no, you're not going to have this. There's no way I'm going to stop you. The immovable force against an unstoppable object, because Galactus is only doing what's natural to him to survive. Yeah. He's consuming. Now, with Galactus, you can reason with him if he lets you.
Yeah, if he's in the mood. He's in the mood.
It's not like he's not there to consume mindlessly. He does have an intellect, and he does have a thing on it, so he can be bargained with, negotiated with, and reasoned with. It just whether or not he's in the mood to listen. Yeah. That's really with Galactus. So sometimes as a hero, because look how many times Silver Surfer talked him out of things. Not to do it now, whatever, or this is a better one. So if he was non-reasonable,
time here when we can go over there. Yeah, the Silver Surfer is. I would say the Silver Surfer is he human? He's human, but he's just not from Earth. No, I would say he's as smart as Reed Richards, or maybe smarter.
Well, he's a lot smarter for what he knows.
Yeah.
And where he's been. So what happens is he's taking them to worlds that are dying or they have no populations and stuff so he can consume. So Norn Rad is steering Galactus where he needs to go to handle that in the universe, but not to take populated worlds.
I have to say that you're right. The Silver Surfer movie should only be CGI. You shouldn't try to do it live action. You could do parts of it live action, but it's going to be if you don't do it right, it's going to turn out like Green Lantern, which I sat through Green Lantern, and I really wanted to like that movie because the whole idea of Green Lantern is kick-ass. Because the will of my imagination, if I had a ring, I could protect a whole fucking part of the galaxy. Sign me up! Oh my God, when can we leave? But the movie had an all-star cast, and it's still everyone. It lacked a lot of heart. It was very like cardboard. It felt like a green screen. And I think that if they had spent like another year writing it, it would have been a lot better.
Well, the thing is going with the Green Lantern, and going back what Rob said, this is where too many people got into it, because they should have this is the first time Green Lantern is in a movie. Just do the origin story of how he gets powered. Yeah, don't do anything stupid. Boil it down to what it is to be a Green Lantern. Oa and all the rest of the stuff, that's what take that out of it. He's dealing with becoming a Green Lantern.
That's the end of the movie,
That's the end of the movie. He's Green Lantern. Well, the thing is, if they would have did it like the Donner Superman, that movie would have been great. But they wanted to sensationalize it, make it more than what it is. That's where you lost everybody. It was too much too quickly. They didn't let it marinate, because you have what was his name that crashed on the planet? Not Norn Rad. Norn Rad is
Amon Sun. No.
Amon Sor. Avensor.
Remember, it's too close to Apocalypse, isn't
no,
it?
it's Avensor, and he's the Green Lantern. He crash lands it,
and he dies. They should
have left it right there. Started with him, give a little bit on it. He crashes on Earth. This is what happens to get the new Green Lantern. Whatever kills him comes after him. Now he has to protect him and protect the world or whatever, because whoever killed him is now still looking for that Green Lantern, looking for that ring, whatever it is. And it could have been a generic robot. It could have been anything. Anything from the Green Lantern universe. The only one you didn't want is you didn't want Sinestro or anybody like that. Then at the end, he is welcome and says, you could have had Sinestro come in, and the Green Lantern goes, you just open a key to a bigger universe. Come and that's your sequel.
Meet the Birdman and Kilowog.
Yeah. Kilowog, yeah. You brought him too early. He just needed to deal with the fundamentals of Green Lantern, what it is, how he learns about it. If they would have done it like the Donner Superman and did it little by little.
Yeah. We need to talk about one of the queens of the comic book movies that never gets mentioned, because we have mentioned Blade, and then you just mentioned Superman movies. And that's the fantastically hot and amazingly talented Parker Posey. Because she's in a Superman movie, and she's in the third Blade movie, and I'm a huge fan. I'm a real big Christopher Guest fan, and she's in, like, almost all of his movies. She's in Waiting for Guffman and Best in Show. Isn't she in Best in Show? I don't think I have that one. But I have A Mighty Wind, and she's also in Waiting for Guffman. And Parker Posey never gets enough press, because she's just devastatingly hot and amazingly talented, like so many other. She's not the only one. I mean, who do you like in Hollywood? Actually, I should tell you who I hate. That list's a lot shorter. Madonna needs to retire. There, I said it. Anyway.
But that's what happens like with Green Lantern.
You want to talk about Parker Posey? Okay, we'll go back to talk about Green Lantern.
Parker Posey, I mean, I'd rather see pictures.
Oh, hell yeah.
There we go. See, there we go. Now we're talking. That's the problem what happened with it, and that's a perfect example, is that they put too much stuff on one plate.
Yeah. Sorry, I mean, my joke, not a joke, made, because not a joke. Oh my God, Parker Posey. Like when Ryan said, we played a game of fucking suck. I got to pause this movie and think about that for a minute. And take him out and put me in. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, guy.
Yeah.
All of these groups want the big splash. So they're looking to make, I want the blockbuster. And the only way they think they can have the blockbuster is if I can tell the tale, if I can tell 10 stories from this particular comic book, from this sequence, from this 5-year span or this 3-year span. These were the comic books that sold the highest numbers. So I'm going to try and put those stories into this film. And what they don't understand is that you can build a blockbuster. That's what they need to harken back to the original X-Men series. When they made the X-Men movies. Here's the first X-Men movie. Bam, blockbuster. Everybody wanted to see it. They said, hey, what's coming out next season? Another X-Men movie. Really? Oh, shit. Well, we got to go and see that. And they kept doing it. And then they said, you know what? Now we're going to start looking. And that was the first attempt at going into the background stories. So now we're going to go through the background. We're going to do a background of Logan. Let's do the background of Logan and the Weapon X and all of that, see where we can go. And that became an incredible series that took off. And these guys lost sight of that. You could fill movie houses. If you started that process again, you could fill movie houses and you could get your money back on Netflix and Amazon Prime, all the rest of it, by running these films in that manner. So if you took, pick a character now. If we decided we wanted to take a character who doesn't get a whole lot of the press right now, but they did very well in the comic books for 3 decades. You grab them and you say, okay, now I'm going to introduce this character to a new generation, because the teens and the tweens and the 20-somethings don't know this character. They may know it from the most current iteration, and it's the third generation of this character. But I'm going to take you back and show you where they came from in a massive motion picture, and I'm going to tease you at the end. Here's the first tale. They became their character, they grew, they had their first big encounter, and now they get to meet the others that they only heard about in their universe. Now that I'm a superhero, I get to meet this character and this character and this character. But that's the end of the film, because the next film, we take you to the next journey of this particular character, and you carry them through. You could run 4 blockbusters a year with 4 different characters that you're building, and then after 3 years, you've got all of them. Then you make another blockbuster where I bring all these characters together. Boom. And in that team up, I bring in a new character that we're going to show. I'm going to showcase this person about 3/4 of the way through the film. They come in, and then that's my next blockbuster sequence, because now I've introduced you, I've given you a taste, and now I'm going to move it on. There's 40 years worth of blockbusters in the Marvel universe that you could do in that fashion and not shoot yourself in the foot.
Well, I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., all the other... It's that speech that Joker gets. It's like a dog chasing cars. I got this great thing, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't have a plan. So I think it's a lot of similarities where they just were in such a hurry to turn a profit, and their investors wanted the returns. But they made some really bad decisions.
If I spend $20 million on a blockbuster today, and it brings me back, and it triples my money, but it also gives me a serialized profit plan. It gives me a pathway, so I can spend $10 million today. I can spend, and as soon as this production is done, I give everybody 3 months off, and I bring them back, and then I spend another $10 million, and I move into that production. And now I've got 2 films that have made bank in 2 years, and then I can go back and say, now I want $25 million because I'm going to make the next one bigger. And I intend to bring in a new character that will then feed my next sequence. And that is the planning. You guys aren't looking that far ahead. They're not thinking about it.
Yeah. Introducing characters is always risky. Most of the time it's catastrophic. Sometimes it's win, 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 win.
Well, the bad thing, what happens why it's catastrophic when they introduce new characters, is because they don't introduce them right. Is if you introduce a character right, you could have never heard of it. But if you make the story compelling, then what happens, people will remember that and stick with it. Because, like, everybody didn't know who Iron Man was. We knew who Iron Man was. But the first Iron Man was compelling because it stuck the story. It made the landing. You could take a non-character. Like, for example, I could take DC's Checkmate. And you're like, Checkmate, what kind of hero is that? He's kind of like a vigilante, kind of like a Punisher, has his good things and his bad things. Or Booster Gold.
Booster Gold.
Okay. Yeah. Booster Gold, okay. Everybody kind of, but you can make a good, compelling story with it that now he can become a hero if you do the right story and portray it honestly. Don't make it too kiddish. Don't make it too serious, but make an honest character of it and tell an honest story. Then people will go, oh, I like Booster Gold because he was a good character and so forth. If you throw him into something and people go, look at it, then what happens is you don't get to know the character. People don't like when you throw a character into it, people's like, who's that? Well, it's good to do that because now you got people interested in it, but you have to get people to understand that character's flight. So once you introduce their movie and so forth, then you get, oh, I understand the backstory. I understand what makes this character tick. Yeah. People fall in love with it. It's like, I hate to use Star Wars, but like with Rey, what a lot of people don't like about Rey is she didn't endear herself to a lot of people because she didn't go through the hero's journey. She just is.
She just handed everything. She was like handed everything. Crow. Here you go. Here's all your supplies and superpowers. Thanks. Bye.
There you go. And I hate to say it, but when you watch it, you could say the same thing about Captain Marvel. There's a little bit of that in there. So what happens is there's not an honesty into the character.
Dude,
What everybody
hold on. Most of the characters that you just mentioned are literally the equivalent of 1980 Clash of the Titans when
correct.
Perseus wakes up in the amphitheater and, oh, look, a helmet and a shield and a sword and Burgess Meredith. Oh.
Yep.
You got to be fucking kidding me, right?
No, it's like
By
that.
the gods. It's from the gods.
It happened. It's plot armor.
It really
So when you look at
it's
it,
a convoluted plot device, friend.
And what happens is people pick up on it, and you don't get the feeling or the underdog. So sometimes sometimes with certain superheroes, you lose that. You're like, oh man, they cheapens it. Oh no.
And you're right, because George Lucas went to Joseph Campbell to learn about the hero's journey, because Joseph Campbell was already famous because he was going all around the world collecting the power of myth. He was collecting the real Greek tragedies and Russian stories and Norse and Germanic and Gaelic and the Gael, all of the Gauls, all the people around the world, because he wanted to find out, the psychology behind why do we need to hear these hero stories, because we need to hear those stories. It's the same thing why Superman, Captain America, King Kong, and professional wrestling will never go away. Never. And I hope they don't. They never will, because it's the same as fashion shows and beauty pageants and drag queens for the ladies. That's their comic books. That's what they need to hear. That's what they're into. That's part of their culture and society. So it's not for us to judge it or take it away, because it makes them happy and that's what they're into. That being said, males need these kind of stories as examples to how to govern our lives so we don't turn into assholes.
Yeah. It's what's funny is that when you look at it, and the best stories are written as a comeback story, as going back to the hero's journey. Even some of the female movies and stuff that you like, they have the same elements in it. It's exploration, overcoming, facing your demons, and becoming something better than what you are. So when you look at some of the movies, if they lack that as a whole or basic in the movie kind of falls apart, because if you took the Fantastic Four, and if it wasn't for the family aspect, how much that they fought is how much that they loved each other. That they took care, like the whole, like going back what Rob was saying, the whole aspect is one being. They're the Fantastic Four because they're all pillars of the same being. When they come together, they become formidable. So what happens? Each one has their own fight. Each one has their own demons, but they overcome them to work together because they have to. Because Galactus is not a force that gives up easily, nor is he going to put up. He's going to put up a hell of a fight. So going back to the Fantastic Four, any hero, you have to overcome that because you're dealing with an immovable, unstoppable force. So with them, they have to have that. If they don't have that as their basis for it, it falls apart because Johnny's going to become pissed off and he's going to charge at Galactus and get himself killed. Sue's going to try to protect him because it's his brother, and she's going to get himself killed. Richard's going to try to do something on it and not forget about it and make a flaw in it. And Ben is going to
the thing is going to have to save everybody's ass. That's what happens.
And you see what I mean? How it falls apart? They get himself all killed. Johnny would be the first one, and you know what I say is true, because Johnny would be the first one. Galactus will smack him out, crush, gone. Sue's going to protect her because she's going to go. Is it her brother? She'll go nuts, crash, gone. Because Sue dies, Richard's going to go nuts, crash, done. And Ben is going to try. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
They're
Once
just
Sue's in
out.
peril, science goes right out the window with Reed.
Right out the window
because he does love his wife.
He does love his wife.
I do think Pedro Pascal will do fine. He's a great actor, but I really want to see John Cranchett, Jim from The Office play. Dude, that was perfect. Oh my God, more of him, please.
I don't see Pedro
Pascal was great, but it's been 20 years, so
yeah, I don't see Pedro Pascal being the Brainiac. I don't see him doing that. He's too mopey. Like everybody in said it. He's too mopey. He's too
he did
emo.
a
He's in
really,
his feelings.
from what I saw from clips, because I didn't have a chance to watch the movie, but the villain he played in the Wonder Woman movie looked pretty convincing. And I'd rather see him as a villain in Marvel than a hero, to be honest.
Correct.
Not to, and that doesn't take anything away. I already said he's an amazing actor. I like watching him and stuff, but I watched 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. I don't think I saw the 3rd one yet, but Paul gave me the first 2 seasons.
I like him as Reed Richards from a physical standpoint because he embodies what Reed should be. Reed was always perfectly coiffed in the comic book. He was always perfectly coiffed in every one of the films. And that is not in keeping with who the character is, who we've described his personality to be. He's going to be the guy that's going to be he's in the lab, and he's been in the lab for 48 hours. He hasn't had a shower.
Yeah,
his hair is disheveled, and he smells like 4 days of
the news
gamer
wants to
funk.
talk to you. Okay.
And so Pedro Pascal with the scruffy beard and the disheveled hair, in that he is going to be perfect in that condition. You put him in the laboratory, and somebody comes in and they go, Reed, I need to talk to you.
Dude,
And he
brush
turns
your hair.
to look.
What?
And all of a sudden, he's disheveled, and and you're like, that is Reed Richards.
Okay.
That is the person that I expect.
Yeah, because if they were going to remake Half Baked, Pedro Pascal would be guy on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to worry about that. Right now, we have to worry about robbing the dispensary.
Yeah. The only part with it is I hope he can pull off, but in none of the trailers shows up the intellectual side where you can see it. Because with Reed Richards, the funny thing, you're right. He would be disheveled. He would be like an Einstein figure and stuff.
Okay.
He'd be rather kind of
You're
goofy.
making me. No, I still want.
But you can't. But you can't ignore the science of it. So with it, with the science,
you can't ignore the science about the science, guy. Okay.
Yeah. What I mean is that it's like what they do in Star Trek. What difference a good Star Trek from bad Star Trek is good Star Trek has good science that backs it up that you go on and when they're talking about Dyson spheres. Bad Star Trek
science has swear words. Dude, what are you doing?
It ignores it, and you're like, you can't do that in space. You can't. It kind of blows the effect away. So what Reed Richards is, you have to have that effect where it's science, it's about the science, and there's science there. So I hope that they put that aspect into it because that's essential for his character.
Right. If they write that in, and he presents it in the same mindset, not the same voice characterizations, but the same mindset he does as Mando, because Mando is very, very sharp, very cut, very clipped, and I'm speaking to you in a very particular pattern because I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm presenting my information to you in this narrow stream, this narrow confine. That is going to be Reed Richards. For Reed Richards to be disheveled and to be, what? Oh, okay, well, you need me to explain to you that the Dyson sphere actually has to be the size of a sun, and it has to carry this much capacity, and we need to do this, and the amount of materials necessary is impossible to find to create this vessel. But he's going to have to present it in that Mandalorian style of vocalization. If he plays it as the Mandalorian, it's not going to work. But if he plays it as Reed Richards in that clipped, set style, not quite monotone, but not a lot of emotion to the scientific part until somebody challenges. Then I bring the emotion.
I do not question his acting ability. What I'm saying is my personal feelings. Damn it, John Krasinski should play. I think Pedro Pascal is going to do a wonderful job. The problem is you've said it, but I also agree with Guy, is the 2 trailers that I have seen kind of focus on Ben and Sue in the beginning, a little bit of Reed. Johnny doesn't even say a word, which, what? Johnny is usually running his mouth all the time. And Johnny doesn't even get a word in the trailers, and then we switch to female Silver Surfer, Which again, what are you jumping that far? This is the same problem with the first X-Men movie, and we jumped right into the 80s, forgot all about the 60s. Where's Iceman? Where's Angel? Where's Beast? Where? No. Wolverine and Storm and Jubilee and Nightcrawler.
They're aiming for a new generation. What they're touching on, they're putting this in the hands of my grandchildren.
Yep.
So they're looking for the tweens and the teens and the 20-somethings, because these kids don't know. Even if they've been to the comic book store. I went to the comic book store the other day looking for something for my grandson for his birthday. Wanted something specific. They didn't have it. Neither here nor there. As I'm in there, there was a group of teenagers. They were looking at very specific things, but they understood those items that had come out since in their lifetime, in their short lifespan. And they saw some things as I watched. They saw some of the stuff that came out in my son's timing. And then they started to see some of the things that came out in my timing. And they looked at it, and you could see that they were trying to process all of these things, but they were operating from, this is what I know of this character, this group, this series, this sequence. This is my comfort zone.
Stuff. Yeah.
The thing that I will hearken it to is Doctor Who. I remember the first Doctor. I saw it in reruns, but I remember the very first Doctor.
William Hartnell.
Who was my doctor, the doctor that I grew with?
Yeah.
Tom Baker.
Yep.
Who was the longest doctor that was ever there.
Yep.
So, but now you start talking to Whovians, Doctor Who fans, and that are young, and they really don't know those other doctors except for the specials that came out in the last decade or so, where they brought all the doctors together.
Yeah.
And so now we've got all the doctors that are showing up to provide something, and they took reasonably done. Yeah. They took clips from the previous doctors and they put them in, and that worked out well.
You brought up Doctor Who, and at the time of David Tennant, Paul made a very poignant observation. Your doctor, okay, my doctor is Tom Baker. Your doctor is Tom Baker. Guy, the same, Tom Baker.
Tom Baker.
Americans are pretty much introduced to Tom. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you again.
Well, I mean, Tom Baker, Ray Fiennes, because he was a doctor I remember for a short time. I forget what his doctor's name was. And so I have a couple of them because I was there.
No, we're talking about back in the 80s when you turned.
Back in the 80s, yeah.
Your first doctor that you saw was, I was going to guess Baker as well.
Yeah. Baker was the first.
That's kind of when they started playing it. Now, they played others later. I don't want to sit here and they only played Tom Baker. That's not the case at all. But that was like the first one that America had seen, because of the statement that Rob just made. Is he was Doctor Who he was the doctor for a long fucking time. I mean, what, like 10 years?
7 years, I believe. He was the longest to play. Because I remember Pertwee, I remember the doctors before him, because I got to see them as bits and pieces as they came along. But I really jumped in when Tom Baker, his first episode that was aired here, I got intrigued originally. But then when I saw the first regeneration, and you're like, oh, this is cool. So he carries on. And then
just keeps going. He doesn't
then you
really
had all
die. He just dies.
Yeah, you had 7 years of, oh my gosh. And then it kept progressing. So that was where it came from. But then I also got to see, because they would replay all the other ones. And I said, oh, well, I want to see some of the earlier stuff with Jump. I want to see some of the earlier characters before jumping. I want to see all the way back. Then you got to see the very first one. And it's like, oh, I kind of wish I'd have had a chance to see these, but I never would have gotten hooked had I seen those first.
Because they're goofy.
It wouldn't have drawn me in.
They're really goofy, the first two doctors. What's interesting is that, like, you would mention John Pertwee, and that's Paul's first doctor, and we were talking about it, and he's like, the first three doctors, and even Tom Baker and Sylvester and all the the Doctor is kind of indifferent to humans. He's more about stopping the races that are doing evil. It just happens to be happening on Earth. Oh my. It isn't until Eccleston and Tennant Doctors 9 and 10 that he becomes a champion of humanity, the protector of humanity. That's like a way later thing. In the beginnings, it's the companions that really convince Doctor, you've got to do something about this. What? Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Because he's thinking about other stuff.
Baker played it up as he had an affinity.
Baker had a Willy Wonka quality to him.
Yeah. Right. He played it out where the Doctor liked humanity, but he liked humanity like you like a 3-year-old.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I'm going to protect the 3-year-old. Don't touch the outlet
with the science.
Stay away from the, don't touch the hot stove. Come here, let me show you this. This is really perfect example. Would you like a jelly baby? So that was the migration or the progression of the Doctor. Yes. So the very first Doctor, he had a granddaughter. This is my family. Well, here we go. And I do like humanity because I have a relation. But as you went along, it became a matter of the Doctor would grow and progress, and he developed that grandfatherly love of humanity, where he says, "Okay, I'm going to help you along." No, you need to go over. Don't go over there. Okay, you did something wrong. Come here and let me fix your boo-boo and tell you why you.
This is how you do it. You're doing it wrong. Get out of my way. Let me show you how it's done. You're right, because I got the William Hartnell first episode from the library, and I got to about the third episode. God, they're really hard to watch. It's total MST3K fuel. If ever there was MST3K fuel, they demand to be made fun of. But then again, it's 1963, the BBC. Yeah. No money, they don't care about sci-fi. They want to do dramas. So they really weren't given a chance. And it's only because Geeks and Nerds Unite, even in 1963, that people started writing letters. The same reason that Star Trek survived, the same reason that Firefly turned into Serenity, the same reason people still demand Battlestar Galactica to come back, because that fans are, fandom is strong because people, those are bubbles of memories and times that, like music and so many other things that are in your mind. Why don't you do Ren Fair anymore? Because all the people are gone, and those opportunities are gone, and choking on my own spit. The opportunities are gone, and the area has changed. It's not the same fair it was in the early 90s when I was a carefree 20-something-year-old and didn't have a kid yet, and I was just a street character, and this was a great place to do live-action D&D without weapons.
Because I'm now the guy. Well, I'll show you. This came up today at work. So you're going to love this, guys.
His crotch.
Yes. Pay close attention to the crotch.
I'd rather not, thanks.
No. This came up today, and I was asked if I had this kind
of...
So,
yeah. Wizard is never early or late. He arrives precisely when he means to.
So I am now, as you can tell, the old man. That's why I don't go to the wars and the Ren fairs and stuff like that, because I'm now the old man. Hey, you goddamn orc children, get the fuck off of my lawn.
So true. Hey, they call me the wizard at work, and when Dominic draws pictures of us, I'm always in robes with a pointy hat and a longer beard. And I wish I had my beard that long. That's awesome. I'm not really a wizard guy, guys. I'm actually a college dropout. Doesn't matter.
No, but that's how they see you as. It's kind of a compliment, really, if you think about it.
I
are the
believe
wizened
so.
old ones.
Wizened old ones?
What really amazes me is, oh shit, hold on. I hate it when you like grab something on your computer. Okay, we're good. I just made this disappear. What really amazes me is how much my brain has retained from hanging out with you guys and Ron and Paul especially, where I don't know anything about computers. Okay, do this. Okay, do you want me to do it like this, or do it like that, or do it like this, or do it like this? I thought you didn't know anything about computers. I don't. I've just had friends that know everything about computers, and I've been paying attention. Because I have the one guy, Dan Creech, that I work with, and he's like, you lied to me. You said you didn't know anything. I'm like, compared to these other guys, I don't know anything, but I know a couple. That's the beauty of computers. There's many ways to skin a cat. Sorry, Stella. I hate using that reference.
The cat runs out the door.
No, she didn't care. She's just sitting next to me. But it kind of the problem with Doctor Who is it started in it was first in its area. Besides Flash Gordon and Rocket Man to the Moon and probably Captain Marvel and a couple others, you didn't really have a lot of space stories. Isn't it Voltaire that writes a story about a giant alien that we only come up to the top of his shoes? Like our tallest man comes up to the top of his shoes. And he has to leave because he's going to kill us by accident. Bye! Oh, sorry, bye! So, Doctor Who changes everything. Doctor Who is England does everything first. Three's Company, Sanford and Son, Cheers, all the stuff. They're always one step ahead of us, and we kind of, even The Office.
Yeah.
People say, do you like The Office? Both, England and, even so, the movie What We Do in the Shadows and the show What We Do in the Shadows are kind of different. I don't really know much about the show, but I've probably watched the movie 18 times because it's so stupid funny. I keep watching it again and again because that movie is, to me, on the line of the Christopher Guest movies. Spinal Tap, Best in Show, A Mighty Wind, Waiting for Guffman, those films. Because they're mockumentaries. They're filmed and real things are happening, but it's all kind of outlined, not scripted, commedia dell'arte style. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy that kind of. That's kind of like Ren Fair. I mean, you kind of know what you're going to do when you go up to entertain people, and you've got your best lines, but now and then you're going to run into a human that's way funnier than you are, but they're just a normal person. They're not in a costume or working. He's just there with his wife. Or even worse, she's there with her husband. Oh, no, I'm fucked. It happens.
But that's the beauty about it, because when you get to different type of stories with Doctor Who, you have certain stories that you liked in Doctor Who, other ones that was not so good. Certain type of comics you liked that had good stories that resonate with you. So whenever you look at it, different stories, DC and so forth, there's always a certain run written by somebody that people like and people quote and people go back to, because they did something with the character nobody else did. They brought something to the table that nobody else had. So when you look at it, sometimes you can write Batman for years, but only people remember certain runs of Batman because of the stories involved. All the rest of it was filler, were regular detective stories going back and forth and stuff on it. But you had certain arcs. Every comic book has that, where people love that story.
I can't agree more. Where certain miniseries, Slide from Spider-Man is a perfect example. Where here was a character that was a one-hit wonder that only appeared in one or two Spider-Man episodes, but I mean, there's no different that character could have kept being developed, and the suit could have got better and better and better, and he could have become a speedster for the Marvel world, because honestly, Marvel does not have a lot of speedsters. They really don't. Quicksilver is pretty much it. And he isn't really involved in daily operations of Marvel. The Avengers don't have one. Cannonball, kind of, but that's not really the same power. It's more a kinetic energy thing. It's not a super fast human. Where Flash has a whole fucking family. Oh my god.
Correct. But I think what happens with Marvel and with DC, the two have something, is that they have similar characters, but they don't want to deal head to head. So with Marvel, you're right. You got Quicksilver. They could have did so much with Quicksilver and made him a prominent character, but they chose to leave him as a secondary.
He's not to. Barely in canon, really. I mean, really, he's more prevalent in the movies than he ever is in the comics. Correct me if I'm wrong. And down in the comics,
no.
Like and subscribe. We need your subscriptions and likes and subscribes. Oh my god!
I'll give you a perfect example.
We all work 2 jobs. It's terrible. Well, guy doesn't.
With Moon Knight, for the longest time they compared him to Batman. Moon Knight was considered Marvel's Batman, but then they said, "Wait a minute." So when they switched it around and
crazy,
then he became his own character. Now he's no longer compared to Batman, because he's no longer a Batman ripoff. He became his own identity. Now you see him getting his own series, because before he was a derivative of Batman. If you really think about it, he had the crescent moons, the moon copter, and all this. And you looked at him like,
well, the problem is that, again, people outside of comics want to put the characters into categories, and it doesn't really work that way. You need to think of it as individual origin stories, not character class. Here's a this is better. Here's a perfect example. If you're playing D&D in the tabletop pencil, paper, dice sentence, fighter, wizard, cleric, thief, bard, monk, ranger, paladin. With superheroes, they're not in classes. They're the product of their origin stories. And this is where TSR, Marvel Superheroes, did the fucking greatest thing ever. Now, I know they took some of it from Champions, but I am not familiar with Champions as much as I desperately want to play that tabletop game. It just never happened. Like Traveler, the list is very long of all the tabletop games I either own or wanted to own and really wanted to play, and, well, your group either wants to or they don't want to. And just do yourself a favor and don't force them to play a game that they don't want to. It's catastrophic. So with Marvel Superheroes, it's mutant, alien, altered human, high-tech wonder. There's another one. But, I mean, that's it. If you're a mutant, you're a mutant. This is why Spider-Man can never join the X-Men. He is not a mutant. He is an altered human. He got bit by a radioactive spider to get his powers. Yes, he was already a science genius, but that was a bonus. Whereas Iceman has been able to take, like Frozone for the modern audiences, he's been able to take moisture from the air and turn it into ice crystals at his will, and he is an omni-level power. I mean, he's up there on the top level of mutants, which mutants can be very... Well, anyway, but that's whereas Tony Stark is a high-tech wonder. He has a suit that gives him his power. The arc generator in his chest gives him his power. He wasn't born a mutant. He was just born a genius. The Hulk, altered human. Marvel Girl, mutant. Should we go through the rest of the... You want to name some more?
Ant-Man would be
altered human. High-tech wonder. You're right.
The high-tech wonder would be high-tech wonder. Hawkeye would be...
high-tech wonder.
Would be high-tech wonder. Black Widow, high-tech wonder. You go with Thor, and it would be alien. Would be alien.
He would be classified as an alien because this classification. Oh, sorry, Stella. I didn't mean to hit you. This classification comes from the agents of Shield, not which that's what Marvel took it. Marvel did the greatest thing ever, and I do not know if there's a DC counterpart, but they put out the Marvel Universe where they literally put out hundreds of issues, and each page is a dossier of a villain or superhero. And if you don't have the time to read thousands of comics, this is great because it tells you what issues the heroes and villains are in. Again, these came out in the 80s. I know I use the word again a lot, but my dad used a lot on me, so it's kind of again and ultimately were his favorite words. Penny farthing. There we go. Wherewithal. I snuck it into that conversation. So there's a lot of things. But back to the fans. I'm going to Don King all the way back to the fans. Sue is air. Reed is water. Johnny is fire. Duh. Ben is earth. And that's the way that you explained it, Guy. Because Ben is the oldest of the group. He's a seasoned test pilot. He's been through the hard knock school of life. I think he's a high school graduate. I think he's had 0 college because Korea. Because remember, the comic starts in 62. We looked it up?
Yeah. 62, 63.
So Vietnam is just starting, and that's where Sergeant Rock and everything else comes in. But Johnny represents youth and impatience and the inability to be self-aware, and they constantly rescue his ass. Yes, he's amazingly powerful for an altered human, altered by cosmic rays, but he's still an altered human, and like the rest of them. And the same thing with Doctor Doom. He's altered human, high-tech wonder, magic. Magic is the category we forgot, because alien, magic, high-tech wonder, mutant, altered human, and train.
Magic, yeah. So where it goes into Doctor Strange realm and all that.
Yeah. Well, even Man-Thing is considered magic.
Man-Thing's magic. Yes, magic.
Yeah, because he's
magic. Ghost Rider.
Yeah. Ghost Rider is magic because the devil and God and all that stuff is considered magic in the Marvel world. Rightly so. So there isn't a lot of like magic stuff in. Well, if Reed or any of them encounter magic, they just contact Doctor Strange. The magic community or the Marvel community is the upper echelon are within phone distance, but the lower levels are in the beginning. Daredevil and Iron Fist just can't call up Iron Man.
No.
But when the stories progress, oh yeah, many times, oh yeah, they know each other, they hang out, they're friends. But that doesn't happen for decades of putting their nose to the grindstone, blood, sweat, and tears out there in the field, fucking beating people up, getting beaten up, getting almost killed, getting stitched back together. There's a lot of semi stories that are amazing. And one of them is that I think it's the Gladiator, one of the super heavies of Marvel that doesn't even exist on Earth, declared that Ben Grimm, the Thing, has the strongest will of all the humans on Earth. He cannot quit. And the Gladiator is the only one, I think, that... Because they got in a fight, and he broke the Thing's jaw. And not even the Hulk was able to do that. And, yeah, the Gladiator is a little bit stronger than the Hulk. No one's here to debate that. But to be able to break the Thing's jaw is off the scale. And he still kept fighting. And the Gladiator could have killed him, but he decided, I've never encountered another human with this much force of will, you should be honored, not destroyed.
Mm-hmm. That's what I hope they bring to the movie, and I hope they bring to each element, each character, who they truly are. Because, like what you said with Ben Grimm, and I remember the Gladiator, and the Gladiator had his moral code, his compass, and so forth, and he was a gladiator.
He's
He
not a
looked for
nice
glory.
guy, but he's just.
He's
I would
just,
say
yeah.
that.
And he was just in his battles. He was looking for the ultimate challenge. He's always constantly going through the universe looking for the ultimate challenge. Who can best him? He wants to best everyone.
Finally, a rival. This will be our a worthy opponent.
Correct. With the thing, the thing, everybody like Thing versus Hulk, and the difference between the Hulk and the Thing, the Hulk rages and just battles until you kill him or he kills you. So there's an end point to that too. Or you somehow get Bruce Banner to reappear, and you go to his intellect, where the Thing remains the Thing. He's Ben Grimm
all the time. He's the Thing.
all the time. He's Ben Grimm. He's always the Thing. And the personality of Ben Grimm, he's not the Thing and Ben Grimm. He's Ben Grimm, the Thing. So he stands there and he's going to take the beating, but he's going to keep dishing it out. So with him, you don't get a changed personality like with the Hulk. You get the Hulk or you got Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
And very few times you ever get both of them at the same time.
No. Well, you're right, too, because even in the first Avengers movie, when he runs into Harry Dean Stanton, are you an alien? What do you mean? Well, you were green when you fell through the roof. So it's like the Thing doesn't get to change back. He only changes back like twice, and it's temporary. But because of his physiology, the Thing lives to be like 5,000 years old. They have a story about him 5,000 years into the future where he's in New York in a garden, and everybody ignores him because they've lost so much of history that they just consider him a crazy person because he walks around this garden talking to himself. Because humanity's forgotten about all the amazing things he did for the last 4,000 years.
Yeah, he's a relic of a different era, different eon. Yeah. And with that, think of it, 4,000 years of life where he's not dying, he's eroding. So for him to die, he's got to perish all entirely. Yeah. So to him, it's the worst death sentence because out of all of them, he's going to outlive all of them.
There's something, again, as I've noticed, there we use that. Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, Luke Cage, and the Thing. These are my favorite superheroes. I even have a little. It came with the Marvel superheroes. You got a Ben, a Thing led figure out of the TSR box. The Thing's always been one of my favorite superheroes because there's something fantastically. He's not cavalier in the sense of the charismatic sense or paladin in the sense of the charismatic sense. He's more of the peasant hero, which is what I idolize most, where he's not going to start the fight. He's not going to throw his weight around. But if somebody else is doing it, God damn it, I'm going to go over there. And that's the way the Thing is. He doesn't start fights. He's reactionary. He's very samurai the way the samurai should be, or the way the chivalry code knight should be. Go ahead.
Well, this sums it up. Do you remember the quote when we were growing up? It's, did you start it or did you finish it? Ben's never going to start it, but he will finish it.
But he's going to finish it.
He's going to finish it. He won't start it. So it's always like when my dad said, did you start it or did you finish it? He'll finish it. And that's Ben Grimm in a nutshell, because regardless of what happens, whether you started it, they started, or whatever, he's going to finish it. Yeah. And he's going to stay there until he finishes it, which what makes the character great is because he does that.
But I mean, he's not Johnny's the hothead. He's the one to fly off at a moment. He's the one to get offended. He's the one to get upset. Don't you talk about my sister. Don't you talk about my brother-in-law. Don't you insult my friends, this and that. Where Ben is more, he's the classic tough guy that, like you said, isn't going to start it, that isn't going to, throw the first stones. He's going to be reactionary in the best sense. And that makes him the earth in a way. I'm just going to wait here till you're done throwing your shade and talking your smack, and then I'm going to beat the living hell out of you. And you're going to learn a valuable lesson. That my strength runs deep, and that's why I don't need to flaunt it. Where Johnny, as being the element of fire, Johnny already has a successful, I can't remember, I think he's in the military, but before that, he's like a Johnny Storm and Johnny Blaze are almost synonymous, where they're both daredevil motorcycle riders there, because they put that in the movie too.
Yeah,
where
he's a daredevil.
He's already a thrill seeker, adrenaline junkie, skiing mountains and doing all that before he becomes the Human Torch. Because really, Stan Lee kind of revitalizes the Human Torch from the 1940s, because the original 1940s Human Torch is a Nazi experiment that rebelled against its makers.
Mm-hmm. He was a super soldier, I think, or something like that. That went and betrayed him. That was a lot of things, because Stan Lee took a lot of stuff from the Golden Age and bought it and got it and put it in and created it. Because the Human Torch, you're right, Golden Age Human Torch was different. I think it was owned by Atlas Comics.
Yeah, and it was
he did it.
It wasn't a dude.
It was an android, a robot, or something, and he changed it into our Human Torch. Look, going back to Daredevil. Daredevil was done either by Atlas Comics or another one, and was something entirely different. Was a circus creator and so forth. He had a black and red suit and on it, and he fought evil.
Yeah. The original Daredevil's yellow and red. It wasn't all red and black like the one that we know.
Well, the original one in the one that he took it from was a red and black and red and blue costume. It was like split down the middle and had sections on it. Was played off like a stuntman Daredevil, because he was kind of a stuntman and so forth. And that was in the 40s, and he got the rights and paid off the rights for the name and stuff from the comics. And he created the Matt Murdock Daredevil. Then the yellow and red was the first one, this episode on it. But Daredevil existed before Marvel's Daredevil was. Well, yeah. So they bought characters that they came up. Look, same thing with Captain America. Captain America wasn't Marvel. Was Atlas Comics, then they got Captain America. Got the rights to it.
Well, DC stands for direct competitors. People always forget that. They go, oh, it's DC. What does that mean? Oh, it's KFC. What does that mean? The worst was I was watching an interview back in the day on actual television for Mad Men when it was new. And he's like, it's on AMC. Yes, it's new. Do you know what that stands for? Actually, no, I don't. It's American Movie Channel. I hope they're paying a lot. Well, at least you get to work with Christina Hendricks. I hate you. Oh, okay. John Hamm's a great actor. I'm just playing. I'm just jealous because I'm just like to say hello to her and then I can go die.
You want to do more than that, but we don't.
Oh, she's amazing. Well, she's Saffron in Firefly and Serenity. Firefly. And then I don't know her name in Mad Men. She's in other stuff. She's not just in that. She's the equivalent of Rob's female blacksmith that he's. Hey, I'm smitten over her too. We'll figure it out.
Yes, Shadowin Morningstar.
We'll figure out how to get her to come to the forge to be a guest. And you can meet her.
She just turned 40 years old. I was watching her posts on Facebook. She just came back from Las Vegas. She lives up in Bloomfield, Illinois. Oh, wow. And she posted some pictures about her going to Vegas for her 40th birthday party. And of course, she's 6'2", and she's absolutely gorgeous, flowing red hair, beautiful woman.
Old dudes, maybe you're lucky. She had the crusty old guys.
Yeah, red hair.
No,
that's like Red Sonja. Holy crap!
Oh yeah, and she's very much a student of Old Norse and Viking, and part of what she does, much of her blacksmithing work, she tries to do traditional smithing of traditional pieces. So that's one of the things that actually intrigued me when I first saw her work. Was I just see somebody trying to hammer out a traditional sax blade, and they're doing it with a wood fire forge, not even coal. She was working with charcoal, and she was
Wow.
working with hand hammers.
It's going to take forever.
Oh, and she was she was hand forging her Damascus. She didn't have treadle hammer. She didn't have power hammer, anything else. All the work she was doing was strictly with hand tools. At that time, she'd been doing it for better than 10 or 12 years.
Keep going.
So it was very, very well experienced.
Wow, that says a lot, because you always got to look at the temperature and stuff for steel. So to do it without that type of forge and the hand power, no hand, that's a lot.
Oh yeah, and her skill, her technique is extraordinary. And I will freely admit that after I saw the work that she was doing and then I saw who she was, it's like, my goodness, this woman she is the perfect package. She's beautiful, she's intelligent, she's highly skilled, and I've been watching her ever since. And I watch as much for her work videos. I watch as much for the technique as I do to just see her on the videos, because those videos, they're focused in on the technique. She has other videos where she's out there and she's riding her riding lawnmower in a bikini and all that. And it's like, hey, I enjoy that part too. But what really got me intrigued initially was seeing her work ethic and her technique. Just an extraordinary smith. That's why I tell people when they ask me, some of the finest blacksmiths I've ever watched, I've ever seen, have been women. Incredible farriers, incredible blacksmiths. They do an extraordinary job. And then when you think about all of the extra work they've had to put into it to get other people, men, some of the men out there, to even acknowledge them.
Well, that's a good thing.
He puts it out there.
What happens is you always let your work explain everything for you. It doesn't matter if you're man or woman. If you're very creative and let your work speak for yourself, it speaks on its own. So with her knowledge and stuff in it, I give her props, and I don't even know her, I haven't seen the videos. But if she's able to do that with a not even over flame, I realize how hard that is in general with the temperature. And she's not using any machinery, just using the hand and just using an anvil maybe and so forth. That's a lot of manipulation. That's a lot of work, a lot of trial and error to get it right, to get the strikes right when you need it. Because you got to get the rhythm down, you got to get the pressure down, you got to know how hot the metal is for it. So that's a lot of experience just within that context right there. And for that experience to come means a lot of trial and error, a lot of years work on it. So when you work on something, you understand what it takes to do it. It's like you get chefs, and like with blacksmithing is, you just don't strike a metal. You don't strike a piece of metal with a hammer when it's hot. That's not it.
Yep.
It's knowing the metal that you have, knowing the heat that you got it, and what's the end goal, what you're trying to do. Oh, Fantastic Four, awesome. And
dude,
for
this
that,
thing
that's
is fucking huge. Did you see the size of this?
Yeah.
For scale, I'll go get a comic book if I have to. This thing's like this is 11 inches.
See, now that right there is a giant size. That looks cool.
Yes, it is. It was 2nd of December, special collector's edition. Sorry to cut you off, mid-rank guy.
No, it's okay.
1974. Yeah. Can you read it? Oh,
they say.
It's backwards. That's bullshit.
Like I say, Fantastic Four is the first family of Marvel.
Yes, they are.
The first one, even before Spider-Man, it's the Fantastic Four.
They're also one of the very few public superhero identities.
Yeah. The only ones you have like that is you have Doctor Strange, you have the Fantastic Four, Punisher.
The public doesn't like know them. It's just like the superhero community knows them. But your average New York dweller knows that the Fantastic Four, what their real names are. Nobody knows who Spider-Man's name is.
Mm-hmm.
What were you guys talking about? Were you still talking about?
No, we were just talking about the metallurgy and stuff on it. But going back to the Fantastic Four is there's another comment, and I wanted to see what your opinion is on it, Bill and Rob on it.
Okay, it's I'll give you my opinion.
About the size of Ben Grimm. The other issue that they said is that the Thing was much larger than the Fantastic Four is, but when you see him in the lineup, he's all the same size. So they said there's a little bit of a distortion, and they say his head too small for what he is. It doesn't represent the Thing. And I agree with him a little bit.
The Thing is about 6.5 feet tall, but his rocky exterior makes him appear larger. 7 feet would probably be the max. But here you go. What is this, Ditka? 1970. Look, he's only a little bit taller than Johnny. He's definitely taller than Sue. But Reed has always been the tallest, whether he's stretching it or not. Reed has always been... The Thing is always thought of the Thing is always compared to the Hulk as a mindless clobbering machine.
Oh, yeah.
And it's clobbering time is his number one. Oh man, spilled part of my drink. His number one saying, catchphrase is saying, but Ben is a hopeless romantic. Ben is someone who strives to constantly become better than he is because he comes from humble beginnings. He's not a super genius. He doesn't have Tony Stark's money. He had to work for everything he's got. And that grit kind of carries him through life. It makes him an honorable human again and again and again because he meets amazing people all through his existence after the cosmic race. Because of his association with Reed Richards, that opens doors for him to associate with people that he would never meet in real life that respect him tenfold.
You know what? The allegory for him, and I didn't want to say this earlier, but I do. It's like either a military man or a fireman who gets burned in the fire, but he gets allegations for being a hero afterwards. Yeah. He's scarred by the incident.
He's scarred by the incident, but he makes 100% recovery. So there's no sympathy. It's all respect. That's like the greatest. Yeah. Ben Grimm. Okay. Ben Grimm, the Thing. Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. Matt Murdock, Daredevil. Peter Parker, Spider-Man. There's a bunch of mutants. They're part of the working class peasant hero that started out in an apartment or in a rural area. Well, for the most part, they were all apartments. And they had something happen to them or were born a mutant and their entire lives changed. But they've kept the humble red, white, and blue, honest, all the good parts of the Western society that you want to be associated with Captain America. Even Captain America, I forgot to put him, as much as I hate him, Steve Rogers deserves all of... In the story of Captain America, Steve Rogers deserves everything he gets because he put in his time. Even in the first movie. I got beat up in that hallway. I got beat up in that alleyway. I got beat up over there. My ass got kicked over there. Because he never... It's one thing to get your ass kicked and to run away and lick your wounds in a cave and to never try again. Good for you. It's another thing to get your ass kicked again and again and again and to keep trying and to get up and dust yourself off and stand up again and to get punched in the face again and again and again and never keep trying. That's what comics teach you. That's what Spider-Man is all about and all of the others. that's what the Flash is about. That's what Batman is about. Is that not every day things are going to go away? Because the problem is with the Fantastic Four is Reed figures things out, and this is the way they're supposed to be. Sue supports her husband, but knows that things can go sideways. Ben has the wisdom to go, okay, boss, and Johnny has the, I'm going to do this. And then that makes for good storytelling. Because whether it's the Mole Man, or Doctor Doom, or pick your villain, Galactus, they have more than 3. But the best question was when we were... What year did Iron Man come out? 2000? Is that 2000?
2008, the movie. He's been out since the 70s, Iron Man.
No, the movie, not the comic.
Oh, 2008.
So, one of the first questions for Christine was...
It's the same year the Dark Knight came out.
Gotcha.
So,
Well,
2008.
Was, what does Iron Man do? Does he fight, does he stop purse snatchers and things like that? And that made me kind of think of like, wow, if you've never been into comics, you don't really know the scale of professions. No, Iron Man actually goes after the heavy hitters. He's more of an artillery guy. He's in the Avengers. He would go after other guys in suits. He wouldn't really be concerned with the low level. That's more Daredevil and Iron Fist. And
he was never street level. He was never street level.
Never. But you don't want him to be, because that would be disgusting. And oh my God! There's parts of those bad guys everywhere. Oh, sorry about that. Have a good one. Because even so, with Iron Man, people don't know that Tony Stark's Iron Man for decades afterwards. It's not like the movie where he's like, I'm Iron Man. It's true. Burger King. That's not how it happened at all in the comic books.
No, in fact,
they want it to be cut and dry, but it really isn't. Oh my God, no.
He differentiated himself so long for it that even Rhodes took up the Iron Man, and nobody knew.
They thought somebody else was Iron Man. They had so many. It's the same thing with Batman. To watch the movies, you're like, you'd have to be a fucking moron to live in Gotham and not know who Batman is. But the comics are a lot more subtle. Well, eventually, once, Project Cadmus and Amanda Waller jump on the scene, people eventually figure out who Batman is. But they're not going to run around and tell people, because that's pointless at that point. Because he provides a service, It's like the reason that she creates the Batman Forever project is it's the same thing with my take on Superman and Captain America. I hate them. I don't even want to hear about them ever again. But they should never go away. Keep it going. Go ahead. Because people need it. There's a new Superman movie coming out. When? A couple years?
No, this year.
This year?
It's already.
They're not using. What the fuck? Put Henry Cavill back in the suit. What are you doing? What are you doing? Put Henry Cavill.
It's going to go head to head with the Fantastic Four, I think, in June or July this year. So yeah,
it's like the movie theaters, the industries can't wait to create Burnout. Dude, it's fishing. It's chess. It's not fucking checkers. Knock it off. It's not war. 6, 7, and I won. Oh my God. I'm out of cards. It's not Uno. They're in this big hurry. It's killing the Joker in '89. What are you doing? What is this? And even Tim Burton was furious about that decision from Warner Brothers. They're like, no, the Joker is the antithesis. Batman never kills him. No, he should die in the fall. Really, your mind? What? So, we're going to make 3 movies. What are you doing? This is like a story that started in '68 and ran till 2002. Just, make 9 movies. Everybody will be okay with it if you go through and... James Bond is my argument. James Bond is a continuous level of entertainment that you don't need to. James Bond got married in Thunderball, and the bad guy killed his wife. How many flashbacks, sorry. Oh, that's terrible. Backflashes. How many flashbacks have we had in Bond movies of Teresa Bond dying? I can only think of one. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
No other flashbacks. There was allusions to it.
Yeah.
But no other flashbacks.
How many origin stories of Bond besides a golden eye discussion with Sean Bean? Sorry? Guy?
Well, besides the retelling of Casino Royale,
No, that's not really an origin story, though. That's just the first mission.
Yeah, that's just retelling it.
Yeah, it's been touched on a number of times. So Never Say Never Again, they touched on it. They spoke to it.
Thank you very much.
The most recent one, they spoke to it. And they bring back a character. They've brought back a couple of characters who've been villains who came from the history, but not a retelling of the history.
Yes.
Right. So let me bring this character in, and then we find out as the folks watching from outside, oh yes, there's a deeper past here. And we'll touch on it. We'll give you an explanation on it, but we keep moving forward.
So my point is that Marvel, NDC, Top Cow, Dark Horse, all of them, take a note from James Bond. You don't need to do the origin story, and you don't need to do the tragedy story every single time. It can be sprinkled through. They're never going to stop making James Bond movies because, for one, there's always going to be countries, and for two, he's Batman without the suit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Punisher was a good example of that in the comic book world, because there was always the hint, there was always the allusion back, and sometimes there was an overt statement that I'm hearkening back to what happened and why I'm here. I'm going to kill you because you did something that harkens back to what drove me to this. But I'm not going to rehash what it was in detail. I'm just going to tell you that I'm about to blow your head clean off of your body because you're a dick.
There's a Punisher comic where the Punisher, I can't remember which number it was, but the Punisher and Moon Knight run into each other. And they know each other because it's fucking New York. All these fucking vigilantes know each other. Hey, Mark. Hey, Frank. Is your family still dead? Yeah. Still praying to your made-up God? Yep. See you around. Yep. How's your dead family?
Dude.
That's what it is. How's your dead family?
That's
That's how Marvel superheroes interact with one another. They know Spider-Man is a child, and they treat him as such. When he comes up with a really good idea, well done, Peter, that's great. When he says something a 16-year-old would say, okay, Parker. And seriously, that's how they've been reacting to him since I could read comics in the 80s.
Well, they've always been ball busters.
Yeah.
But never, the heroes have never been the absolute asses about it. But they've always been the ball busters.
Cyclops and Wolverine are the only assholes that I can think of that go out of their way to be assholes, and it's usually for a reason.
Yeah.
And Wolverine and Cyclops are already in a love triangle with Jean Grey, where the problem is with that is that with the movies, it isn't until recently in the Wolverine, where they go to the multiverse and they finally show Wolverine is 5'3". Dude, he's a midget.
Yeah.
He's almost a midget. He's only 5'3". So it's like, I don't understand why there's a love triangle between Cyclops and Wolverine. Well, she can go with the guy that's 6 feet tall with strawberry blonde hair and has an optic blast. I mean, he'll never be able to look at her with his own eyes, but or she can fall in love with the 5'3" immortal midget that has razor-sharp claws that come out of the end of his hands, especially during his vivid nightmares that he wakes up screaming and trashing his room with. That's fun.
Oh, yeah, and she was the one that was able to. She was one of the only ones that was able to touch his mind and see who he truly was, and that's a part of who she is. That's her character. That's why she can fall in love with him. Because she's like, it's as much an, oh my God, this poor creature, and how can I help him? How can I save him? How can I, that? And that was always Jean Grey.
Yeah, Jean, like Sue, are basically Marvel's perfect women. They're drop dead gorgeous. I mean, they're literally charisma 10, charisma 20. They're stunningly beautiful. They're in absolutely wonderful shape. They have hearts of gold, and they see people's souls, not their surface. And this is portrayed excellently in the X generation. For they made a big deal about remaking the what is it, the '97 X-Men.
Oh, X-Men.
And apparently they did a really good job with it, except for Rogue's butt. I don't know what happened there. I mean, Rogue had.
Oh, it's just a drawing. They wanted them to be more avoid the male gaze.
Sorry. Anyway, but
they didn't want the male gaze.
After that one was Generation X, and that was neat because they took the X-Men, except for like Wolverine and Storm and Professor X and Beast. And they took all the other X-Men and they put them in high school with all of the other Freedom Force mutants. So now the Blob is going to school with Jubilee and Nightcrawler and, that one was kind of neat because it was like the high school version of X-Men.
Well, they did that also, too, because they were taking a page out of Japanimation and the high school rom-coms that were coming in at that time. That's where they did that for. Was Monster High and all that stuff was going on at the same time.
My youngest loved those dolls.
So,
tons of them. They even had a steampunk one.
But that's why they put it in high school and put it and stuff on it, was to compete with them. So that was basically the whole premise of the story.
That's not that far off, because when we were younger, there was Galaxy High. That was a cartoon on Saturday morning, and that was neat.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like that was like a writer heard about Teenagers from Outer Space, the role-playing game, and like, we need to make a cartoon out of this. Although we can't make it about getting laid, because then we won't be able to air it on Saturday morning.
From Outer Space.
Oh, they just made it about being cool and being human, and it's a totally different show from the because that's all that Teenagers from Outer Space is about, is trying to get laid as a teenager, and as a DM you have to stop them by any means necessary. I guess it's a fun game. I've never played it. It's only been explained to me. I've looked at the book. But that it's always the thing to me was always an awesome character, because he's a knight in shining armor that can't fucking take his armor off.
Oh yeah, he's stuck with it.
Sorry, I've always identified with peasant hero. That's what I end up being in most scenarios. So same thing with the two of you. You end up being.
Yeah.
What happened?
I got to go to bed. Restroom real quick.
Well, that's we all have to use. Mother Nature and Father Time are giant assholes, and they constantly take our life and turn it upside down like an Etch-a-Sketch from hell that we have absolutely no control over. Like and subscribe.
We're getting to 8 o'clock anyway.
Oh man. Okay. Well, at least let them come back. We're past 8. How you doing, old man? You gonna be able to stay awake?
Oh, I am the elder.
You are the elder geek. That is true.
Yes.
Hey, it's refreshing.
That's why I have the hat.
Yeah. Hey, at work, I'm like, we were talking about being the wizard and being the old man, and I'm like this, and they're like, I have no idea what you were talking about. I explained. Well, guys, I think no, we talked about this, didn't we, last week? Or did? Sleep deprivation is a bitch. Avoid it as much as possible. The gods must be crazy.
Okay. Yeah.
The movie, 1980.
Yeah.
Filmed in Africa on location. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it. It's a fun family movie if you haven't seen it. And nobody I've worked with has seen it. So I had to explain the movie and show them clips of the movie and the trailer. And they just, because of all the movies that exist, The Gods Must Be Crazy has my best favorite quote ever. And that is, Key is the main character. He's a bushman from the Kalahari, which is the big desert in the middle of Africa, below the Sahara. And anyway, the Bushmen have a super old language, and they have these little kind of family communities. So the main plot of the movie is, hey, half-hour helicopter tours, or hour helicopter tours. The guy drinks a Coca-Cola out of a Coca-Cola bottle, throws it out of the window. It falls in the sand in front of Key's feet. He's never seen glass before. Excuse me. This is like an alien artifact to him. So he brings it back to his family, to the little village. And now, suddenly, an item they didn't even know existed becomes the most desirable object in the village. They use it now, and you can use it to crush this and that. They can use it to. They use it like we would use a hammer and so many. The Gods Must Be Crazy, the movie.
Oh yeah.
I was telling Brett and Tanner about it, and Brett's in his late 20s, I think. Tanner is 22. Gods must what? And I started explaining them the Bushman. It's his, there's a sequel where his kids go on their own adventure. So, Gods Must Be Crazy too. But the best part of the movie is it's got one main plot, and then 4 other plots go over that movie. And one of the plots has the best quote from any movie ever on the planet. And there is a zoologist, this blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy from South Africa, who is studying elephants. He's tracking them. He studies their poop a lot, and he has very limited funding. So he has a Jeep, and he and his assistant have nicknamed the Jeep the Antichrist. So there's a point where there's a elementary school teacher, and she gets involved in all the craziness by happenstance, and she's like plot number 2. And the Bushman comes out of the the desert, and he comes out to them, and he can't understand their language at all. In fact, he makes the narrator makes the comment that they make noises like chattering monkeys. They can't speak. And all of a sudden, the assistant comes out, and he looks over, and he sees the doctor, he sees the woman, and then he sees the Bushman, and he starts talking to the Bushman in the Bushman's language. And then the narrator says, "Oh, the man with the hairy face can talk. He's the only one that can talk in all the people that I have met, these strange gods." So he said, basically he asks him, "What are you doing here?" And the Bushman looks at the guy and they look at the assistant, and they're like, "What did he say?" And he's like, "Oh, he said, you can have the bottle back. He doesn't want it anymore." And then the assistant looks around, and he goes, "Where's the Antichrist?" That's the where the Bushman said, "You can have the bottle back. He doesn't want it anymore." Where's the Antichrist? Yeah, best line in any movie ever. The movie's fun. I don't want to tell. I want to talk about it for hours, but I don't want to tell you any more about it if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it, please comment below. It's so much fun. It's a great. It's like up there with Private Eyes, or the Apple Dumpling Gang, or the the Zorro the Gay Blade, and Dracula.
It's the funniest movie about a Coke bottle I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's yes, Guy. It is the funniest movie about a Coke bottle you've ever seen, because all this other shit happens, and you learn stuff too.
Yep.
Did you know that the rhinoceros is the unofficial fire marshal of the Kalahari? It happens like 4 times in the movie. What happened to the fire? Rhinoceros. Oh. What? Rhinoceros. What? Rhinoceros. Yeah, rhinoceros. Are you serious? Yeah. Oh, yeah, rhinoceros. Conversations you'll never have in America. Ever. If you saw a rhinoceros come out of nowhere in America and put out your campfire, you'd probably shit your pants, because how'd you get over the ocean? It's a good one.
The guy who crazy it's awesome how they come to pacing and stuff.
Well, Carson, who wants to come over and do blacksmithing, Carson's very intelligent, and he rides bulls, and he likes to bake for a hobby, which, oh wow, you have the patience to bake. I don't have the patience for that. That's why I like blacksmithing, so you can just beat the shit out of it and then turn it into something nice in the automobile restoration. But I've been giving him movie titles, because I was like, oh, okay. We were talking about movies, and I mentioned Cloak and Dagger, and he's like, oh my God, we watched that movie all the time. We had it on VHS. I'm like, I love Dabney Coleman. He's great as a good guy. He's great as a good guy or a bad guy. Rob's getting tired. Anything else you want to say about the Fantastic Four before we hit the 3-hour mark?
No, we pretty much wrapped it up basically for the breakdown of the Fantastic Four, why they were so great, why they were so popular. Hopefully the movie does it justification and brings it to a new generation, because I really like a new generation to find what we fell in love with a long time ago. If they passed it on correctly and they can realize how great these characters are, then they're in good hands. They'll live on for a long time. I don't want them to drop the ball, because to us, we know who the Fantastic Four is, and people who came before us, they're loved characters. We identify with all of them, or with somebody, at some time at one point.
I would like to go on a super philosophical limb and say, in the sense of theory, and without a prophecy, there's really not that much difference between The Last Airbender and the Fantastic Four. Blown mind. You're welcome. Thank you. You're gonna sleep on that and go, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's true.
Wait a minute. The thing is Earth. You've got the fire. Johnny never leaves the Four, and he would never think of leaving the Four, but they get into some serious fucking arguments.
Wouldn't that mean that the Fantastic Four is the inspiration for The Last Airbender?
Yes. Thank you. You said it first.
Yep. I'm like, okay, I get the parallel. I get what I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were living in Asia and you had no concept of the Avengers, anything, and you happened to get one of these in a container, what would you think? Fire, Earth, Air, Water, Last Airbender, 50 years later. 40, 30, 71, 30 years, 40. How old was I when The Last Airbender?
It's about 30
Both
years.
are awesome. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Thank you for us entertaining you. Stay geeky.
Stay geeky, everybody.
No, we have to kill another minute, so we'll actually hit 3 hours. Thoughts, Rob, on what I've just said about the Airbender and Team 4?
No, I think that it is. It makes absolute sense, and that same thought process has been around for millennia.
Oh
You
yeah.
have the four elements, and those were the four elements. There sometimes there's a fifth element that gets thrown into that is the ether, but often it's just the four elements that exist.
Or the
And
soul.
the tales of the four elements have been around for so long, and the tale gets you told, but you add to it the context of the time that you're telling the tale, because again, it becomes a very powerful, potent morality tale.
Mhm.
Always has
Yeah. No, I agree.
Can't argue with that.
Well, there's something, whether, like we talked about it before, whether Stanley realized that he was putting forth a lot of the psychological, because he talked about Daredevil and he's like, I never thought that they were going to, I thought he wrote Daredevil and he put out the first comic and he thought that the blind community was going to hate him. He said it himself. I can't do those things. I don't have those powers. And just the opposite happened where the blind community totally embraced Daredevil. He's like the poster boy.
Mhm.
I mean, granted, none of them have been exposed to toxic waste, hopefully, or if they have, oh, I'm so sorry. But maybe he didn't know. Spider-Man to him was he wanted to have Robin out in front, even though that had already been done with Shazam. But Billy Batston's only like 8. Peter Parker is like 15 when Spider-Man starts, 14 or 15, because he wanted a literal like freshman in high school to be Spider-Man.
yeah.
Which made more sense because Billy Batson, being 8 years old, really won't have the comprehension or the stuff to be a hero because he's still a kid. Any signs of trouble, he'd be running away. He wouldn't know how to handle it.
That's why
So where Peter Parker, well, Peter Parker is a little bit older, so he has his awareness saying, okay, no one else is going to come. I'm going to have to do this myself. But he's becoming an adult because he's still a teenager. So he's faced with adult problems. You can get away with that. But he can always fall back as being a kid. So you have that duality. Where with Billy Batson, he's a kid. He's going to refer to as a kid. He's going to come off like a kid. So what happens is somebody comes up to him, he might poop his pants and take off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He might do something like that. What a kid would do. Will run, Mom.
The best is the way they portrayed him in the animated series of Justice Unlimited, where he joins the JLA, and everybody loves him, but Superman has a problem with him. And then he accidentally supports Lex Luthor, and now Superman has a... So it's like Shazam's just being himself and trying to follow the rules, but they don't know he's an 8-year-old kid. They just think he's Captain Marvel. He's just Captain Marvel. And
the only one I'm sorry. The only one I think that knows, but is kind of more ambiguity is Batman, because he can't criticize Robin. Dr. Fate. Well, Dr. Fate knows, but Dr. Fate is going to let it go for what it is. He really doesn't care less.
He's got more important things to do.
Well, he doesn't really give a hoot. But where Batman, you have Robin. He can't. He's training a kid. Here's a kid. So where Superman is naive until he knows.
Yeah. And that's even Batman and Superman have a talk about Captain Marvel. And he's like, you need to let it go. What? I thought I was the Boy Scout. Well, now he's the Boy Scout. What's your thing with him? We like him. And Batman says, we like him. He's sunny. And for Batman to say that about another adult, that's praise from Caesar. But Superman can't let it go. Has a problem with Captain Marvel not following the rules. Lex Luthor kind of baits Superman into destroying a prototype fusion reactor, and he fights Captain Marvel and destroys the area. So Captain Marvel quits the JLA. It's actually a pretty deep, and that's when he yells Shazam to hit Superman, but Superman grabs him and holds him up to the lightning, and then he turns into an 8-year-old kid, and Superman's like, "Oh my God, holy crap!" And then he tries to yell Shazam again, but Superman uses his speed and covers his mouth. "No, we're done, son." Because even Superman didn't know that I'm beating up a child, and he was done right when he, you do a lot of things, but I'm not going to beat up a child. Holy shit.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because for Batman to let him know, because you have inklings that he knew about Billy Batson a while. Is that,
yeah.
Did he let it go because he knew he could control him because he's an 8-year-old kid? Or did he knew he was going to get under Superman's? Because Billy Batson does what he's told. He has a hero. He's in love with Batman. He's in love with Wonder. He idolizes
Superman. So that I would go with your first assumption that Batman would keep tabs on him, but he would. Batman waits for you to make the right or the wrong decision. So I think that you're right in the sense that he would be keeping tabs on him, but he really wouldn't do anything until Billy crosses the line. Which, in a sense, he didn't. Clark did. Clark was way out of line, and even after the fact, they're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And he's like, "I'm sorry," and they're like, "You beat up a child."
Well, the
What's
biggest
wrong
thing
with
is
you?
I could never understand this because if I was Batman with Billy Batson with Shazam, Captain Marvel, say,
I would
you
have
have
been
to.
on that. Yeah, I would have been like, "Look, dude, you're in a world you really don't understand."
Well, I would have took him under my wing because you already took Robin underneath your wing.
True. And
I would have took him underneath my wing. Yeah, all of them. Yeah,
and Jason, and yeah.
And knowing Batman as I do, I would have had a weapon just in case Superman ever came out of line, can go toe to toe with him. Because Batman's always worried about the Justice League going rogue. Who can control the Justice League? Well, you got Billy Batson here that's impressionable. He's a young kid. Teach him the morality. Teach him the things not to go. There's consequences. Make him that superhero. If ever Superman fails, he's there. Whenever Batman, stop me. If I ever go bad, stop me, Billy. If you go bad, I know you should. I know how to stop you. So right there is as smart as Batman is, and I know why they didn't do it because it's two different stories. You have two different writers, but the opportunity was there to make a great superhero, to keep Superman, Wonder Woman, anybody in line, but also to be a superhero on themselves, just in case anybody goes rogue. Because Shazam is very powerful, and Superman's got one weakness: is magic. And guess what? Billy Batten's got tons of Shazam. So I always thought about
Solomon, Hercules,
all of that.
Atlas, zinc, aluminium. I don't remember. Rob, how you doing?
I'm there.
Okay. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. We discussed the Fantastic Four at length and other psychological Team K9. Oh, Werewolves of London. Thank you for watching. Stay geeky. We love you. Stay safe. Like and subscribe. We desperately need the subs. And we'll see you Monday, if not sooner.
Tell your friends. Or sooner.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to... Okay, we are...